Welcome to the Abington Conservation meeting for Tuesday, March 8th, 2022. Is anybody here for 154 Brockton Ave, or should we push that off?
Yeah, as I say, I'm here for 154 Brockton Ave, but you know, I would be more of a supporting role to Mr. Garvey, the engineer. I can certainly do some basic discussion with you if you'd like, and the hopes that he's going to join. I'm told that he is trying to get in as we're speaking, so hopefully he will hook up.
Okay, sure. All right. So the first item on the agenda is SE 084-0553, notice of intent filed by Dan Mento of Mento Corp. For construction of duplex structure for utilities and parking area at 154 Brockton Ave.
Okay, so good evening to all. My name is Kevin Riley. I'm an attorney in Randolph, and I'm here on behalf of Mento Corporation. And basically, as you've just recited, they would be looking to construct a two-family dwelling on the property at 154 Brockton Ave. If you're familiar with the property, you know, it's got a little bit of history, a recent history with you guys. Basically, what you will see on the current plans that have been filed is that the house, the proposed house, has been relocated to a spot that is east to west, the same location as the old structure, but set back just a bit farther, probably about double the setback from the prior construction, so that it's you know, tries to maximize the setback from the front to from the street, but yet is outside of the riverfront area. So you know, there is associated parking. That is where the existing or former parking was located that served the former house. It is an existing paved area. The construction, the use was permitted by a special permit from the ZBA last year, and then obviously there was some question apparently as far as the what do we want to call it, the nature of the stream, you know, in terms of its conservation significance. So obviously it is now being treated as a situation that comes within the Rivers Act, and the 200-foot zone is being respected in terms of any construction. So there we are.
Is Mr. Garvey on yet, or he wants to?
No.
Do not.
I know they're going to zoning on Thursday.
Well, I'll
Yes.
open it up to.
So yeah, that is the other component of it. There is a scheduled meeting on this Thursday with regard to now a variance that would be necessary for the front yard setback from the street, it being only 30 feet of the I believe it's a 40-foot requirement.
All right, I'll open it up to the board now.
I just want to make one observation, or something that I tripped across, is that when Mr. Riley went before the zoning board last year, the plans that were submitted to the zoning board for the special permit show the lot as 23,682 square feet. And the plans before us tonight reflect square footage of 24,102. I checked the assessor's database and it has it as 0.54. 24,102 equals 0.5533305785. So the half-acre lot has grown. So that would be a question for Mr. Garvey.
True enough. I'm just looking at the plans as you're speaking.
Yep.
He is showing a little bit more depth on the westerly side.
Yep.
Excuse me, easterly side, which, yeah, that would be a question that that I would need him to answer. I'm not positive on that one. There's a tiny bit more frontage, 0.32 feet, and then a little bit more depth. Excuse me, a little less frontage, 185 versus 185.32, but a little more depth on the easterly side.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And based on what you said before, the original plan where you had indicated intermittent stream, we're not going to consider that anymore, correct?
Correct. You know, I think that from my understanding, you guys have had conversation with DEP. My sense is that there was some issue with regard to the GIS mapping of the location of this and the nature of this water course, shall we call it. So yeah, it's being respected now as the determination being a stream. You know, other than an intermittent stream.
Right, perennial for the US
Yeah.
map. Yeah. Rivers Protection Act performance standard state is perennial. So we're going with that.
Yep.
Okay. In terms of what's been done to the property now, the way that it's in, do you have a replication or restoration plan?
Mr. Garvey would be able to speak to that. I do not, but I'm sure there is.
Okay.
My understanding is that the property currently is I believe it's vacant, and the demolition has been completed on the former structure, and you know, nothing has been done further than what was undertaken to the time of the issuance of your stop work order.
Okay.
That brings up the question of where the wetlands actually were, because the river, we need to make sure we know where the mean high river line is to determine the extent of the river and where the buffer zone from the, well, not the buffer, the 100-foot and 200-foot zone go. But when we look at the plan that was submitted to zoning, there was significantly more wetlands there. So I guess really the question I have is, you know, if we're going to do a restoration, where were the wetlands? You know, maybe with GIS mapping and some of the data you have and some soil cores, perhaps we can figure that out. Because obviously, you know, a good bit of that area was the house and, you know, some lawn, but we do need to see that we understand where the wetlands were and where the beginning of the riverfront district starts. It's not in the middle of the river. It's at the mean high water mark. I know it's not a very wide river at that point, but still, I'd like to have some good information for that. And I don't think that that's been provided to us. I think what we got was what's left, not what was there before the disturbance. And, you know, we're probably going to want to see some of that material removed and some, it's kind of a mess right by the river. So it would be nice to see all that restored and fixed, because no work is supposed to have occurred in the 100-foot zone. You know, the fact that we took out the building, it probably will help that area, but we are going to need that kind of definition so that we can prove it. Sorry, I interrupted you, but I thought it was kind of on the same tone. Lynn, go ahead.
Oh yeah, yeah, no, I totally.
I'll let you keep talking.
Yeah, I think it's important that we have some sort of delineation about, best understand as possible what was actually there. So when it is restored, we can, restore it as much as possible to its original condition. One thing that I would ask is that there is a inland's wetland replication guide from DEP. It's available online. And it talks about the things that you need to submit to us for a replication plan. And one thing that I've noticed with replication plans in the short amount of time I've been here is that they tend to be on a plan with 3-point font that's gray and it's just really hard to read. So per that guide, I'd like to request that it's in a narrative form, 12-point font for the older folks and myself. I don't want to get a magnifying glass out.
Thank you.
With all due respect, if you qualify as old, that makes me ancient. So,
I'm actually older than I look. I promise you. Yeah.
You're as older
than that, so.
Yeah. But just, if we can have it in some narrative form, on a, letter, not a letter, but, letter size paper, black font, 12-point, just something where it actually addresses every single point in that guide. And if it's not applicable, statement of why it's not applicable. That would be greatly appreciated.
Do you guys, just not to change subject, do you see Mr. Garvey at all as trying to get in?
No, he's not.
Okay.
We would really like him to be here because I think he could.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he's much, yeah, yep.
There's been no sign of Mr. Garvey. I've been watching.
Okay, yeah.
One other thing on this revised plan, site plan, the notes, number 10. I don't think it's appropriate on this legal document. These are legal docs, right?
Is this something that's normally on a plan like this?
No, it really doesn't belong there, and it's not completely correct.
No.
I just going to point out very clearly that the note says that conservation was notified. Conservation has no notification requirement legally, and the applicant is responsible to come to the board. And the Conservation Commission never got a filing until now, which we were very appreciative of. But the board did not review or hear it. The chairman at the time did sign the building permit, which is correct, but the commission actually had no input to that, and it should have come to conservation because it's zoning. The applicant said they were going to come to conservation, and they did show wetlands on the property. So I just think if we could just delete note number 10, that would solve, I think, all of our problems. It doesn't belong there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why that would be a terrible problem, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's simple enough to just delete it. It just doesn't belong there. And I think it kind of aggravated us. Perfectly.
No, I think that, going back for a second in history, I mean, it was a situation where obviously I represented the applicant at the ZBA last year. It was my understanding at that time that whatever was going to be necessary to be done at conservation was going to be done. The engineers were looking at it at that time. Based on what they saw on the plans, they felt that this was not a situation where on the GIS and such, this was not something where wetlands and conservation would be involved. And that was kind of then confirmed by the information we had received from the building commissioner, which indicated that, the permit or what have you under, your 175/35, I believe it is, was not required. So, that's the basis on which we went forward, certainly not with an intent to, circumvent or, anything with you guys, but it was just kind of I think the mapping and the interpretation of what this water course actually is or was. So, we just want to square the problem away with you guys now and do what's necessary and move the project forward in the proper way, you know? So
That's what we want to. So,
there you go.
Exactly.
here.
We're all on the
Oh,
same
yeah,
page.
it was an oversight. I mean, it happens, and, you know, we want to work with the applicant.
Right, and we want to make sure that it's done right one time out instead of having to
Yeah,
come
no,
back over and over and over.
Absolutely agree.
So with saying that, looking at the revised plan, the existing paved parking 6 spaces, in all actuality, where the original house was and that setback portion that was the camera shop, the parking was actually over in front of where the camera shop was. Where there was a previous single car garage, there was just a single wide, I don't even think it was blacktopped. It was actually left in disrepair. But I mean, there was a 1-car driveway. So seeing that closer to the stream, it would look to me better if it was moved over to where the original parking lot was. And if you go to the assessor's database, I believe it still has the picture of the original house that was there, and you can see the camera shop and where the parking was. I think I have a picture on my phone somewhere.
So Jean, you're saying, I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the plan to understand.
Right.
There's 6 parking spaces showing right off of Brockton Ave, the existing paved.
Right, if you kick it over towards 140 Brockton Ave, see where the original, the previous dwelling that was razed, and then it says, you know, it shows that little building right beside it. If you actually go to the assessor's database, you'll see the picture of how it actually looked.
Okay.
And it's
You're asking for them to move it or to?
well, I mean, to kick it further over, I mean, I would think that would make a wiser choice. The further we get away from that vegetated area and the protected area, the better I feel.
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate the fact that they're respecting the 200-foot buffer. I mean, that's such a plus. And moving the building over to where the original building was is a good thing too.
Yeah, I mean, I'll certainly look at that picture, but my sense is that that parking area is where it was. You know, again, maybe you've got the photography there, but just looking at the plans and such, I'm thinking it was, you know, the same location, but if not, I hear your point.
Yeah, I'm going to see if I have it. And how can I get it to go to everybody? Let me see.
Jeannie, if you email it to me, I could probably share it.
Oh, all right. I'll show it. I'll show you. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going to email this to you, Kathy. What's your appointment?
And I'll wait a minute for it to come through.
All right. Thank you, Kathy, because I'm really not very good.
And we'll have to have somebody authorize me to share my screen.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I had a question. I had a comment on some of the other notes. There's one on the left-hand side, which I think it doesn't add any value. They talk about stream stats to figure out that and stream stats is only used to determine a river to be perennial. It's not to determine that it's intermittent. So I just think it's a comment that's extraneous that should get removed. It's on the left side of the plan.
The note underneath what's under 204?
Yeah, that you should just remove it. I think it's extraneous and not useful. People, you know, this in a few years from now, we're not going to understand what it was.
Oh, I just sent it to you, Kathy.
You did. Okay. Let me see if it came through. Hold on a second. Oh, I just left. Hasn't come yet. I'm waiting.
Okay.
Take a
All
minute.
right.
Let's see. Note number 9, they talk about having topsoil and broken shale. What do they mean by broken shale?
That's just the rock. I'm assuming it's the rock that's coming out of the excavation.
It's just rock. It's not tar or any kind of concrete. We're talking just.
I would assume it's, you know, I'm thinking it's clean fill for sure. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
It's the-
then I'm
yeah,
good
if
with
you-
that one.
It's the type of ledge that was removed. It's a specific type of rock. It's shale. I know
Yeah.
they did some hammering in there, and that's a term.
Okay.
used.
Right.
All right. And,
Thank you.
as far as the wetlands delineation, I think I just have a note here. Note 9 says that Pine Brook did it. I don't have a copy of it, but I do believe somebody has gotten it. But the note should refer to a date, and the date hopefully is before the work got done, because it looks like they delineated it beforehand. If not, we're going to need a new delineation, and we might need to, whether they use Pine Brook or someone else, somebody's going to have to do the delineation. So you might need to correct that. Hold on, I'm going to take another look and see if it came through, Jean. It hasn't come.
What? I'll do it
Oh,
again.
you know what? You might have sent it to my, I have another.
Sorry, I don't know.
Don't worry. If we can't, we can get it to
Yeah,
afterwards.
but I mean, clearly, anybody who can get into the Abington Mass Assessors database and you click on punch in the address. After you read through the size of the buildings and everything else, it does have a photo of the house with the camera shop, and you can clearly see that the parking was strictly
Okay.
right in front of the camera shop.
All right, I got,
Nothing?
I think so. I'm going to download it if I can,
Okay.
make it a full size that way. Okay. No, sorry, that one. Okay. Whoever is in control of the Zoom call, I'm gonna share. Can I share screen?
Yeah, you should be able to.
Thank you.
I think, actually, I'm just looking at, I've got a Google Maps from
There it
September.
is.
Yeah. And that doesn't really show you the whole story, though.
Okay.
I've got a Google Maps from September of 2019, which gives you a wider perspective and
Okay.
shows that pavement extended, not only in front of the little camera shop there, but certainly across in front of the garage and over to the vegetated area.
Okay.
So I do think that the parking is where the parking was.
Can you share that with, oh, wait a minute. I have a Google Earth picture as well.
And I'm gonna stop sharing my screen.
Okay. But as you can see from the Google Earth picture, Mr. Riley, if we have the same one, I'm not really sure.
Yep.
The vegetation beside the driveway and where the garage was is all MIA.
She wants this lunch. She was killed late Thursday night on I-93 in Stoughton. She was pulling over to help a disabled motorist when a tanker truck collided with her cruiser. Speaking
Was that a tanker truck?
I just muted Liz Shay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
As did I.
Okay. I had a couple more comments if we could, if you guys are okay with me going through them.
Sure.
I wanted to understand where the riverfront zone, it's weird. It should be perpendicular, the line from the river, but for some reason, the riverfront line has a strange diagonal associated with it. To figure out where the 200 and 100-foot line is. You guys see it on it?
Oh, yeah. It's diagonal towards the
it
back
should-
of the property.
Yeah, it should be perpendicular. And so that needs to get fixed.
Oh, I see.
That was just an odd thing because it is from the mean high water mark and it's perpendicular on both sides. The other thing is that you can only have a 20% increase in disturbance in the 100-foot zone from what was there prior. So I guess what I would like to have from Mr. Garvey, I'm guessing we're good, but I think we should have the documentation to show the disturbance pre and the disturbance post, including not just the building itself, but the any grassed area and any parking lot. My guess is we're probably okay, but I think that we need that to prove that the redevelopment is appropriate. I didn't see any siltation barriers on here. I think we need them. We'd like to have them on the plan. And our Conservation Commission has been asking for a 15-foot buffer. If that's problematic, I think you need to come back to us, but it's really to allow us a little bit of room, because when construction vehicles get in there, they have a tendency to get right on top of the wetland, and it's to protect the wetland.
Kathy, it does show a little bit of erosion control barriers on the bottom left of the property. It's not very informative, but it does show a line, bottom left corner near the stream.
Yeah, but there should probably be along the 100-foot buffer zone. And it looks like they're trying to match the grade, to the left of the proposed two-family. There's fill going in right there. And it looks like they're trying to match the existing grade that's a little farther down. But that probably, so I'm trying to figure out, I would think that we would have some kind of barrier along the construction there to just protect everything.
I think it looks like, it shows the erosion control just basically continuing right along the property line.
Oh.
That's probably why they couldn't follow the
and the
buffer.
The erosion control barrier is way over at the river.
Yeah, but I think that line, I'm not going to speak for the engineer, but the way I read it is it continues all the way across heading east.
It's kind of weird. It doesn't belong there, really. We want to protect the wetland and the 100-foot riverfront zone. So I would have thought they would have put it like at the 100-foot line.
But where that's another property, another private property, they need permission from that property owner, correct?
What are you talking about? I'm sorry. I guess I'm missing something.
I think she means, right, when you look right next to where it says proposed two-family, two-story, there we see the edge of the 100-foot buffer. And Kathy, are you saying that that's where
Yes,
should be alongside the house?
Yes, because we should be protecting. We should be protecting the riverfront, that 100-foot district, not just what's by the river. I mean, a second barrier along where the actual BVW would be okay as well. I know the BVW extends, looks like off the property. Well, that's the floodplain and wetlands district. What we really need is the true delineation of what was there before, and perhaps a barrier around that too. But I think as long as we put a barrier at the 100-foot, we'll have protected it. But it's just not showing in the right place. And then, I think I had one more. And I had a concern about stormwater, just because, we've had so much disturbance there, and what I've seen when I've driven by there is there's just a lot of water sitting in, I think, what was intended to be the foundation and just the property itself. And I have a concern about drainage and control to the river, because it is, a more sensitive wetland than we usually, we may encounter. It's just BVW.
Just for your information, the number that you see there, the call, the phone symbol, that is Mr. Garvey, if you can let him in. There you go.
Hello.
There he is.
Obviously, I had trouble getting on with different passcodes. I don't know how far along you are in the meeting. I don't know if you want me to stop from what I was going to do on my original presentation, or how long you've been going, or where you are.
I've got a list of concerns, Carl, that, that the board has, the commission rather, has expressed.
Sure.
But one of the things we were just talking about was with respect to the paved area. Is that paved area in fact staying the same as it was previously? Is that the intention now?
It is now, yes.
Okay.
We're not increasing any pavement. We're actually removing a portion of the driveway. It has been removed. That went to the old garage location.
Okay.
It's just a small 12-foot strip by 20 feet or so.
I think the other concerns were location of barriers. Another concern was the delineation or a better perhaps delineation of where the wetlands were, to be able to understand that feature of it, so that they can get a better sense of what needs to be replicated. Maybe you can speak to that a little bit.
Well, I mean, the wetland line was flagged along the top of the bank of the stream/river, and the erosion control barrier is set in the same spot it was before, when the foundation that was dug was there. So that siltation barrier, erosion control barrier is still there. I mean, the new project moves the new dwelling outside the 100-foot buffer zone. However, there is work that has to be done where the previous foundation and garage were located, and the existing materials that were removed from that excavation, which was a lot of shale that had to be broken up, and also the topsoil has all been stockpiled on site. There was nothing taking off site. So as far as replication of that area or restoration of that area, it would be, we don't have a lost area for filling in wetlands. We're restoring it to its previous condition for work within the buffer zone. I think I have a note number 8 on my plan that says existing stockpiles of topsoil and broken shale to be used to backfill existing foundation excavation. If additional topsoil is required, it shall be an equal amount of organic and mineral elements and seeded with a New England conservation wildlife mix. So then there is just some additional grading basically around the new dwelling, that it encompasses some of the area where the old office, photography shop and dwelling were located. So basically, we've decreased the impervious area, taking out the garage and the Photoshop, which equals a total of 630 square feet less impervious. So it's basically an improvement of what's there, that was there prior to the raising of the garage and the dwelling. I don't know if that answered some of the questions, but
I guess the problem I'm having with the wetlands is that first of all, the 100-foot and 200-foot riverfront zone should be from the mean high water line. I know it's not a very wide stream at that point, but that's where it's supposed to be from. And the line goes diagonal, rather at some kind of angle rather than straight across for that. And that needs to be adjusted. The other comment I had on the
Kathy, I'm not sure quite what you, are you looking at the drawing that says flagged BVW? Which is the top of the bank. It's not the, it's not the stream.
I don't have that drawing, Carl.
do you have are you looking at a drawing that says revised February 8th, 2022?
Hold on a second, let me look. I have revised site plan, February 8th. And when I go to I look at the stream, I don't see any little diagonals or any wetlands delineation on it.
Yeah, it says right where it's kind of in highlight. It says flag BVW, and it's a solid dashed solid line, a thicker black line.
You guys seeing that in the drawings?
Yeah.
You have?
I
You
see
do?
it.
It's right by where it says erosion control barrier, right by the stream. It's hard to see.
Yeah,
There-
well,
Typically, you'd
it's
see
a
like
lot
little
darker.
flag.
The other ones are
Typically,
the,
little flags, you wouldn't see it say flagged with a line. I think that's where the confusion lies.
yeah, I mean, it goes from the end of the culvert and it goes all the way to the property line.
oh, I see the BBW now. I see that line.
Okay.
So
And-
anyway, my comment about the BBW was, did the delineation occur before all this work was done, Carl, or has it been since all the disturbance?
It was done before. It was done on what? No, back in November, I believe, Kathy.
November last year, it was disturbed out there still.
Well, after there was a disturbance, I asked Brooke to go out there. She flagged it on November 4th, 2021.
So my point is that I think we need some better documentation about what it looked like before all the disturbance out there.
Well, yeah, but there was no disturbance within that area. I mean, it was.
Well, when I look at your zoning map, Carl, that you put with your building permit, it looked like the BVW was larger at that point. And, I guess I'm looking for better documentation of that BVW. Some kind of course or something, because when I see there's a map that's with the building permit that I've seen, and the BVW looked like it had been, you guys had put little wetland thingies on it.
Yeah.
It was bigger than what I'm seeing here.
That was bigger.
And I don't know where that came from, because if she did it in November, that was post filling. But to me, there's some kind of discrepancy there that needs to get resolved.
Well, I'm showing, I have my other plan that was dated November 22nd, 2021. That also has no little thingies.
But that was after.
That was after. But if you go back to.
You know what happened, Kathy? There were some flags out there that I don't know whether, I'm not sure who did them. There was some work that was being done up on Vernon Street and Niles Street, whether it was the state or whatever. There was a couple blue flags, but they were, the day I visited there, actually Brooke said, oh, it looks like somebody'd been here before. That was on November 4th. And
Carl, I'm talking about a drawing that you guys submitted to the zoning board or to the planning department that's back from April. So, and there's just
that would be
I saw.
exactly.
And I saw Lynn nodding her head that I was.
Can you unmute, Jean?
But
Jean's raising her hand. Jean, you're mute. We can't hear you, Jean. Jean. Can't hear you.
Yeah, we can't unmute you.
Here I am. Did I jump in? Sorry. I actually went to the building department and I had them make me a copy of the map of the drawing, I should say, that was submitted and created by Carl W. Garvey on February 24th, 2021 of this site.
I'm looking.
I have that. With you, but I got one.
I have that. I also have that in front of me.
Okay, so one of the things, just setting aside Kathy's questions, there's a little more information on this drawing than there is on the one that we currently have revised as of January 7th. But again, my first question to Mr. Riley was this. On this drawing that was submitted to the Zoning Board of Appeals at their meeting, the square footage of the lot has increased on the current map. It was originally at 23,682 square feet, which is 0.5436639,118, which is
That basically, Jim, when we went to the Zoning Board of Appeals, we had not done a full property line survey of the property.
But Mr. Garvey, the assessment database has it as 0.54 as well. And on your new drawing, it comes out to 0.55, 330-57851. So then the assessor's database information was incorrect as well?
Yeah, I don't know where the assessors get their information from. I have no idea.
I think it's
but there was
from the Registry of Deeds.
There was, yeah, but there was some discrepancy over exactly where the street line of Brockton Ave was. We then did a complete property line monument survey tied into the Mass Highway, some monumentation, and found that it was different than what was there before, but it still is not a major insight.
Well, I mean, it makes a difference in the front.
It was taken from a written deed description, and I don't believe that written deed description was correct. And we therefore corrected it based on the actual location of the Brockton Ave street line, which turned out to be some highway bounds that I think that somebody mislocated, and we rediscovered. So I stand by my survey plan of, let me turn it over.
So the first one is
February 8th, 2022, which was not, we weren't at that time, the site was under a purchase and sales agreement. Whether Mento was going to buy it or not, it depended on going to the Zoning Board of Appeals to be able to construct a duplex on the property, as well as the floodplain. And it wasn't necessary to do a full property line survey. I mean, we did do a topographic survey, location of site features, but it was not at that time necessary for what we were doing. Once that was granted, we did additional field survey work and discovered some errors in the previous written deed description. But it really doesn't affect what we're looking at today. And I'm looking at that plan, the original plan, and I think the flag line on this site now is larger than what was the blue flags that I located on my original survey, which did not even extend to the end of the pipe. So I just called it a flag BVW line. I know that there was work being done in that area by the state, and I know that's obviously the blue flags were intended to, I think, probably mark that outlet pipe.
So you had a delineation done in February, but you don't have any documentation for that?
No, I didn't do the delineation. It was there. It was some blue flags. I don't know who did it. We then later on November 4th, I met Brooke Monroe on site, and she delineated it that day. And she also pointed out, I see a couple blue flags, and she says they're about the same as my line. And then she wrote me a report on November 6th that is included in the notice of intent we just filed. And that line follows the top of the bank of the stream river. And based on that, the riverfront zone was created. The inner was 100 feet, the outer is 200 feet off the high, which would be the top of the bank. It doesn't overflow the top of the bank. The piping on this site starts across the street and extends approximately, it starts, the upstream end of the piping starts behind the building number 171 on Brockton Ave, then continues under Brockton Ave, and then discharges on our site. Total length of that piping is 230 feet. So the riverfront zone does not, since the pipe is in excess of 200 feet, the riverfront zone starts at the inlet end and resumes at the downstream end. And it is perpendicular to that line. So I believe that, I think Kathy was questioning maybe that line. But we're not really doing anything in there except restoration of where the previous foundation and
So my
garage
comment,
was.
Carl, my comment was that the line doesn't look perpendicular to the river. It looks like it's diagonal. It's got a little angle to it. I'm not sure why. I'm not understanding that. I thought it would have been perpendicular.
All I did was take the flag, the top of the bank, the flag BVW line, and offset it 100 feet on the computer. It's an offset line. It is. All I can say is it is 100 and 200 feet.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing that it's 100 and 200
And
feet.
I don't care if we move that 100-foot line another 20 feet to the east, in the 200-foot line another 20 feet.
That's not what I'm asking. Sorry, Carl, I'm not asking that. I'm actually asking, is it at an angle? Shouldn't it be? I would have thought it would have been just perpendicular, and it's at an angle, and I'm not understanding that. The dotted line for the, I'm not disagreeing with the 100 and 200 foot line, now that I understand where you got the mean high water line. What I'm trying to understand is why
it is perpendicular, because I've offset the line, Kathy, from the end of the pipe to basically where the property, where the VVW line in the top of the bank intersect the property.
Yes, that's basically that line is the end of the culvert where
the line starts at the end. Yeah, I get it. It's at the end. It's at the culvert.
Yeah.
At that part, I just don't. I'm sorry, and maybe I'm being dense, but
No, I think I have the same issue because
No,
I'm
so if you
expecting
run a
explain
scale,
it.
straight and not like that.
It's perpendicular because I hit the offset button at 100 feet and it goes 100 feet away. It has to be perpendicular.
just because the computer put a line in doesn't mean it's right.
Well, it's an offset line. It's not something.
no, I understand what Carl's saying.
You do?
Yep.
Okay. Carl, I think you're all set, but I think what we need from you too is the how much area you pre-existing was disturbed and now in the riverfront zone only. And then what is now disturbed in the riverfront zone in the between the 100 and 200 foot zone, because you can only increase it by 20%, but we need that information so that we can say, yes, you're good. Can you generate that for us?
I thought I did on the notice.
I think you only did the building.
On pages, didn't I redo
You have the
page
building
3 and 8?
coverage, but you don't have any other disturbance in the yard or,
Wait a minute, let me see.
you say existing building coverage, proposed building coverage, but you don't have it doesn't appear that you have the yard or that goes with it.
I'm sorry, Kat, but where are you?
It's under your note number.
Oh, under my notes.
Yeah, it's note number 7. Sorry, I'm making a lot of crackly noise because I got the plan out.
But if you go to page 3 on the notice of intent form, under the riverfront area, it says proposed alteration of riverfront area. I say 2,000 square feet, 1,800 square feet of replication within the 100-foot zone, which would be where the, which would be the area between the 100-foot zone, the dashed line that's cutting across there. So it's taken up a small portion of the old garage, Kathy, and a portion of the foundation that was excavated and a portion of the area around that for a total of 2,000, well, I say 2,000 square feet. And I say 1,800 of it was within the 100-foot and only 200 within the 100 to 200-foot area. Which I threw that in, but I don't really think there is 200 feet in there, to be honest with you.
So I'm sorry.
Because the raising of
So
the.
what you're telling me is that there is a 200-foot increase in disturbed area pre and post in the riverfront area overall, the 0 to 200, right?
Pre and post.
When I'm trying, yeah, the way the redevelopment regs work is that, you know, you're allowed to redevelop.
Right.
They increase it by 20%. I think you're in the limit. I just think we need that documentation. And I'm trying to understand what you just told me. And it's only the riverfront piece, which is not the whole property.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I get that part.
Well,
I think you're fine.
What I state on page 3.
You think that's what you're telling me. That's all I'm just trying to confirm.
I submitted revised pages 3 and 8. I don't know if you received those, Kathy?
I don't think I did.
No, I mean, when I submitted the revised plans, the original, yeah, I submitted 13 copies. I think 11 copies of the page number 3. I also substituted page number 8 only because it referred to the wrong date of the plan that you would be approving. I put the new date of February 8th. Also, within that, I also submitted copies of stream stat reports. There was like 4 pages stapled to.
I saw the stream stat report, so maybe I do have the revised notice of intent. I'll have to go look.
Yeah, but it was just pages 3 and 8, and I think you'll actually, Andrew, when he said I should refill out page 3, but I filled out pages 3 and 8 also.
Okay.
Why am I not seeing it? I am not seeing that.
You're not seeing it?
I think is also in the redevelopment, as far as any work, I can do some regrading. It says major trees. I think you're familiar with this, but major trees must stay within that area. Loaming and so forth can take place, especially, in the redevelopment. Removal of debris, but retaining any trees or other mature vegetable. Grading to topography, which reduces runoff. We are reducing runoff because we're reducing runoff to the river because we're decreasing the impervious roof areas that were with the garage and with the portion of the house that contained the photography studio where they sold stuff out.
Yeah, I think we would want a plan for what you're going to do there. You know, I think, you know, what the grade's going to look like and what you're going to do. Would you guys agree?
Absolutely.
Well, we're keeping the
Yes.
back. We are showing the proposed, next to the two-family house, we are showing, you know, basically the 119 is being the maximum fill area on the westerly side of the building, and then we connect the 120 contour. The rest of it stays basically as it is.
What are you going to, I guess, I think I'm looking for something a little more narrative related that explains what you're going to do and what you're going to plant. I think that's what the board's looking for, but I'm sorry,
I
something.
would like to try to get this taken care of tonight. Switch out the other one.
To go on mute.
I'll be back in a little while. So I can clean up.
Lynn,
You didn't clean up the kitchen.
maybe you can.
What are you talking about? Oh, no. I know.
I think we can. Karen, can you mute yourself, please? Thank you.
I mean, you can approve. I think we'd like to get this. There's been a lot of problems, and I'd rather not get into them. But if we could, you know, get something, if there's some additional information, put it within the order of conditions, and we could perhaps do it that way. I mean, if you want to know what's the grasses and the plantings in the back or whatever, the only thing I can see we're doing is we're really installing a proposed stockade fence along the inside the property, but along Contours property at 60 Elm Street, which was a condition that the zoning board had put on this project previous. So we're kind of just moving that stockade fence up there. And other than that, it's staying pretty much in its natural condition. Unfortunately, that area's got a lot of stone outbreakings of ledge and so forth that are going to be sticking around.
Well, we don't have a replication plan. We don't know what was really there before because you didn't delineate it before the work started happening. So we need to know what it was like.
I do know what was there because I was there, and we're replicating. We have not taken any material off of this site. Absolutely no material has been removed from this site. It is stockpiled there. It's going to be used for the backfilling of the foundation and the area that was disturbed with additional soils if in fact we need them.
Okay,
and
so
planted. I mean, this site was in shambles. The site was in shambles before they got there. This is a vast improvement of what was there. I would think the conservation, by reducing this area, would be happy. It's moved everything basically further away.
we don't know what it was when you have a.
And I'm not going to be able to produce what was there before. Well, I can't produce what was there before. I'm not going to be able to. I don't understand what you want me to do. What would you like me to do?
Okay. May I speak now?
Certainly.
Thank you. The original plan that you submitted, so there were bordering vegetated wetlands, right? In order to do a proper replication plan, you need to have done a dominance test to determine the percentage of cover for each of these different little areas, right? Around the bordering vegetated wetlands. That's not done.
We're not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere near the bordering vegetated wetlands. Before anything was done on this site, there was an erosion control barrier that was requested to be set up. That was set up. We did not do so. Any work that was done was outside of the erosion control barrier, which is still there today. I mean, in the area that's being restored is the area between the erosion control barrier and the excavation of the foundation. That's the area that is being put back to its natural condition only in regards to the riverfront area, not so much the buffer zone. I mean, buffer zone is an area that's under your jurisdiction, but it's not an area that cannot be worked in. We were still away from the BVW, in some cases 30, 40 feet.
But you don't know what was there
In
terms of vegetated species, and you don't know the exact boundary because you did not do the work that would have to be done to make that determination.
we don't need it. It was done. The natural vegetation when this site was flagged was there in 2000 was still the same vegetation that was delineated by Brooke in November of 2021 because that area was not disturbed. She
You had
states
a foundation that was built or was dug up and that area wasn't disturbed. Is that, I mean,
it wasn't the original BVW area.
but
And
how
the
do you
area,
know
the
that?
area between the foundation and the existing flag BVW, she states what plants that were there in determining that. It has nothing to do with that. It's that line on the first plan was actually closer to the brook than actually Brooks was. There were blue flags and she moved her flags about 5 or 10 feet away of those two. And I saw them both.
To do the replication plan properly, we need to make our best guess as to what is at that site and what the borders were. And
Yeah, but to do a replication, the material that is on site is the material that we're using to backfill the same area.
Cannot
the same
do
as
that.
I would do for a wetland.
Cannot do that.
If I was doing a wetland crossing, you would request that I remove the topsoil from that area, stockpile it to the side, do my wetland crossing, and then I'm going to have a replication area someplace else on the site. You would say, now take that topsoil that you removed from the wetlands and put it in your replication area. In this particular case, that material is still on site and is going to be used for backfilling of the foundation and covering the area that was disturbed.
I talked to Andrew Poyant at the DEP and he said that is not to be used for that purpose.
Well, Andrew Poyant didn't say that to me. And I talked to him as
And if you
recently
look
as
at the
2 days ago.
inland wetland location guideline, it doesn't say anything about that either. I mean, right now, what we have right now is an indication that you're going to seed with a New England conservation wildlife mix. I believe there were trees at that site as well.
No, there
Bushes.
were not. No, there were not.
Were there?
Excuse me, may I jump in, Mr. Garvey?
Sure.
Everything from Brockton Avenue along that pipe to the exposed area of the open stream, there were mature trees. Everything along that line was excavated and cleared. There are stumps that still remain currently there. So there were mature trees. And if you go all the way to where the brook is open or the stream is open, there's vegetation. You even have your stockpiles there. And I hate to even think of the amount of sediment and erosion that's occurred since the enforcement order that has since washed into the stream and is now compromised that stream.
Well, I haven't noticed any of that, and I've been to the site 3 or 4 times since then. It could be debris since all the catch basins on Brockton Ave have no sump pumps in them, no gas traps, are totally full of sand. And when you go out to this particular ditch, you'll find plastic bottles, a lot of nip bottles, and they're all coming from the street drainage system. As far as I'm concerned, I think we've complied with what, and I would like the board to make a decision on this matter. If you want to put some conditions in there, go right ahead. If you want to have DEP issue them, go right ahead. But I think this has taken long enough for some areas that should have been addressed a long time ago. You want stuff in the.
I don't have the
replication area?
information I need to make a decision. I need more information right now. It's completely.
Well, unless you have photographs of what was there before, I certainly don't.
I think we can get photographs from Google Earth, can we not?
You can also do a
You
wetland.
people can do what you want. I think we would like a vote tonight on this project. We feel that this is an improvement over what was there. The final replication area is going to meet the standards. And if you don't think so, please turn the project down. But I say it does.
We don't have enough information to make that determination right now. That's what we're trying to tell you.
Well, maybe some of the other board members should
Sure.
tell me what they need, what they want. What do they want us to do? Oop, did I lose you?
Kathy, you're sharing
I'm
your
looking at
screen.
somebody's car.
Oh, no, that's,
Oh, that's Proctor
Yeah.
Gap. There's the Conway building and there's the camera shop.
Yeah, it's
So
pretty
all
open.
that border, all that vegetation is now gone. Those trees that were in the front are now gone.
Yeah, they were in the buffer zone. They don't have to be replicated. Why would they have to be replicated?
But it goes all the way straight back. You have stockpiles of debris of the shale and broken up, which reminds me, I have a question. With regards to the house that was demoed and all that blacktop that was there, was that taken off site?
Well, a lot of the parking lot has remained. The demolished house and garage were taken off site. They were under a separate building permit. There was a permit for demolition of that building. There was a report submitted by someone to make sure that there was no hazardous waste as far as any vinyl stuff. There were shingles that were on the side that had to be transported to a off-site separately. That was all done and inspected by the building department. That stuff
So
is
you're
not
saying
off-site.
that the previously blacktopped area is still there on site?
Yeah,
so, well, no, a piece of it's gone from the foundation you already dug up, right? And that asphalt was taken off site?
We don't know.
no, there was from the excavation was where the garage is. Is that what you're
Right.
talking about?
Yeah, but there was a small section of asphalt that you guys took out when you dug for the foundation, correct?
No,
Where
the
that-
garage,
where
the
The
garage,
driveway immediately in front of the garage.
Yeah,
there may have been a small area taken out.
and
when
that
they raised
asphalt was
the
taken
garage.
off site, correct?
As far as I know, it was, yeah, everything, all of the debris, construction debris was taken off site.
Okay.
Yeah, because the outside of that building had asbestos shingles and the removal, I know the removal of that was delayed for almost a month for somebody to come in and do inspections on the garage and the building. And it had to be taken off site, and it was.
The shingles had asbestos in them?
I believe there was asbestos shingles on the side. I'm not, the Mentos would comment, but I remember it was the building inspector originally was going to issue a demolition permit. And then he said, that has asbestos shingles on the side. They had to be removed and brought to a special site. I believe they had guys up there with little plastic uniforms on.
Okay, so it was properly, the asbestos shingles were properly abated. There was no friable.
Yeah, you can check that with the building department. Absolutely.
Because then if that asbestos was not disposed of properly, you're opening up a whole other can of worms.
Well, it was. I mean, it was, that was the reason for bringing somebody in. I just got a message from one of the men from Mento, and they say, Kyle, you're correct. It was removed from the site.
Anybody else from the board have any questions?
I think we still have some outstanding things that we wanted to see on the plans. You know, I'd like to just take a moment to maybe summarize what I think we talked about was removal of note 10 and the note on the left-hand side of the about the stream stats, because
Yeah, Carl wasn't here when you talked about that earlier.
yeah. And
Yeah, unfortunately, I had a different.
Carl,
number.
if you just let me go through.
Yeah, go right ahead.
If you just give me a moment, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. We wanted to see the silt barrier on, well, I did anyway. I don't know what the board thinks on the, I wanted to see another silt barrier on the 100-foot riverfront zone, just because we're trying to protect that as much as possible from the construction. We wanted to see a better a delineation report that reflected what was there originally. I think Lynn just mentioned that. And we also wanted to see a replication or restoration, I should say, of that area between the river and the 100-foot, how you're going to restore it in a more narrative and more detailed format. Is there anything else that we talked about? I'm just trying to put it in a nutshell of what our concerns were, because I think we've been kind of all over the map. But did I capture everything, everybody? Is there anything else?
I have one
Lynn,
question.
Go ahead, Jane.
No, go ahead, Paul.
Are we going to be able to approve these plans with note 10 still being on them if we want to have it removed?
Right.
I don't think we should approve the plans until we get the silt fence, if we want it, and the notes removed and the delineation clarified. But that's, I'm an associate. I don't get to vote, guys. You guys get to vote. But
Yep.
from my opinion, I prefer to have a nice, clean drawing before we go forward, and that we all are comfortable with what's going on. I'd prefer to keep it under Abington control, but you know, you do have the ability, if the applicant wants us to deny it and go to DEP, you do have that ability as well.
Kathy, I like I said, I missed obviously the beginning of the meeting, and I missed what you said about 10 and something else, but I have no problem removing note number 10. And what was your other comment, Kathy? I'm sorry.
The note over on the other side, over under building, you know, where the Conway building is there. I wanted that one out because the stream stats aren't really applicable in this case, as Andrew told you.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. Yeah. Okay.
And the silt fence along the 100-foot riverfront zone. But I still think we have the issue of the restoration and the replication. I wanted to try to summarize it because I think we've been kind of everywhere. And before we moved on, just had people stop and think about what we're doing.
I mean, I have no problem putting in another silt fence, but you have work that is being done in that area for replication.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, there would be a silt fence put in maybe after the replication, or you could ask for the replication to be done first and then a silt fence put in. I mean, that's up to you.
That would be a construction sequence thing, and that would be what I think I would recommend when we're doing the orders of conditions.
Which we have no problem with. And then the silt fence would be moved to the area on the just about along the edge of the old excavation. So you would have a silt fence that would be roughly 80 feet into the 100-foot buffer zone, Kathy.
Yeah, I get what.
And it would circle back towards the existing parking area to about where the parking area was projected into the previous garage location and looped around. And that area would be an area that is being restored, but then the silt fence would go in that area after it's restored.
And that would protect that
no need of putting it there
restoration area.
No need of putting it there before, because it's only going to be disturbed. If you follow,
Yeah.
Are you following what I'm saying?
Exactly, I get it. It especially if we decide to sequence it, it makes perfect sense to me. it's really to protect that restoration.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's why the board can make a recommendation to restore and seed that area or whatever that has been disturbed, where the foundation was, where the garage was. And it didn't go much outside of that. There were areas where I think somebody else might have cut some trees. I'm not even getting into that. There's a fence that's over the back property line. There was some areas that were, I'm going to say, disturbed before Mento ever even got there, but I don't even want to get into that. The only area we did was around where the stockpiles are and where the foundation was excavated, and we want to restore that. And we're willing to do that and replant that area prior to starting the foundation for the new dwelling.
Okay, and I was just trying to summarize it, Paul, just to try to move this along a little bit, and you guys can figure out what you want to do now.
Jean, you got a question, right?
Well, I mean, I was gonna just ask for Lynn to get into a little more detail with regards to, I think if the summary is good, but there's a lot of detail that's going to be required for the replication. I mean, according to the requirements that I read today, they're very detailed. And also, one of my biggest concerns was that initially when the project began and the site was being cleared, there was a lot of water that was pumped into that stream, and we don't know what that impact is. So my concern is, what happens to everything that was pumped into it from the excavated hole? I mean, notification was made to the Conservation Commission from the woman who abuts her property is 95 Nile Street. And the water turned brown. So there's been a lot of impact there. So I'm going to defer to Lynn because she seems to put it a little more eloquently than I can. But I mean, there's a lot to the replication process from what I see.
Well, I mean, if you go up there now, there's no, I've been up there several times. There's no silt or mud that's washed into the stream that I can see. Any pumping out of that hole would have been based on groundwater. It's not contaminated water. It would have been groundwater.
Well, it would have been contaminated, Carl. If it turned the water from being clear to brown, I would say that's some sort of silt or contamination. And that was observed by the woman who lives beside 95 Nile Street, who was the one that called conservation on it.
Well, it's not. There may be silt in the water, but it's not a.
Again, silt and sediment have an effect on whatever.
It's not there now, and I don't know. I mean, I'd like to say, Jean, what you could do about it now, but I have no idea what you could do about it. I don't think we're not about to pump out the entire length of that stream or follow it all the way down to say Strawberry Valley. We have to be serious about this.
May I expound on one thing though?
Sure.
Currently, the hole that is sitting there now has water pumped in it. That water needs to be trucked off that property. That's one of my concerns.
Well, I would put that in the order of conditions.
Jean, in terms of the issue with the stream, I would just recommend, really the only thing we can do is follow the Massachusetts inland wetland guidelines there, like I recommended at the beginning, going through each of those different requirements point by point, and that information that they can provide to us so we can approve that. But damage is done.
Well, I mean, under the protection of a river, first of all, I mean, the lot is not in an area of priority habitat for rare wildlife species. There are no vernal pools on the site. There are no fisheries or land containing shellfish within the stream. There is no increase in peak runoff as impervious areas have been decreased. I don't think there, as far as when the original Rivers Act was established, I don't believe it was quite intended for this particular use. It was later redefined by a line on a geodetic map that was created. Some of those were created in 1927. The act was created August 7th of 1996. I find it unique that if this area was dashed as a stream on a map, that the Conservation Commission could request that stream stats be done for this stream, which I was originally told could be done by DEP, who later changed his mind, that if I submitted stream stats showing that this does not qualify as a river, I would not have to fill out the other information. So I find it funny that the area, watershed area from the stream stats is 0.21 square miles when the threshold is 1 square mile to determine that it's a river, and the stream stats as far as stratified materials is 0. It doesn't even register. Therefore, it would not even be considered a river under the act, as if this was dashed on a line and the commission said, we think it's a river. And I would prove that it's not by submitting stream stats. However, when they say it's a river, I can't use the same stats to prove that it's not. That is insane.
It's in the performance standards.
I know, I agree. I mean, Kathy, I know.
I think we're just off topic now, Carl, with this one. I think we're, DEP's kind of ruled on this. And
yeah, which I'm not arguing.
Focus should be on Lynn's question about the wetland.
The only way to dispute that is by taking locations, and that would have to be done in July, August, September, or October, and we really don't want to wait that long.
Well, even if you did, it wouldn't matter, because in the Rivers Protection Act, it states that those different observations that you can make can be done, but not if the stream has been affected by human mediated causes. In that case,
no, we're talking about that's fine. Okay, that's
so
fine.
it's perennial.
I mean, we've already moved the property to that's a moot.
Can we?
Yeah, let's move on.
Can we try to get going on?
Are there any other questions?
Would like us to do, and we would agree to do that. And Kathy made a few suggestions. I've said fine on note number 10. I'll remove the thing about so it'll always be a river, even though the house next door that was built there, and other projects along there all the way to Strawberry Valley have been done on that same particular property. But that's neither here nor there. If
Are there any other questions?
Would make some recommendations as to what they want us to do. And I made a few suggestions that we wouldn't start the building until the restoration area was done. You would issue a certificate, maybe you would inspect it, make sure it's to your needs, and then we would proceed with building the structure.
Is it possible to get a site walk?
A site walk?
Yeah, like a site. Can we do a site walk on that property before we?
Well, so we're gonna. I mean, I think we've had months to do a site work, but yeah, I mean, at this point, can we just do something? I mean, it's been sitting around since when?
Yeah, I understand your frustration, Mr. Garvey, but we also want to do this and we want to do it right. Okay, so I don't think.
Not sure what a site walk is going to do, but if the rest of the board wants them, all members want to go out and do a site walk.
No, I'm just.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that, Jean.
I mean, we've talked a lot. Nobody has been on the property. Nobody has looked at the property. Nobody even has been able to see just what is presented on this plan. It's nice to see the plan.
The members of the Conservation Commission, you've had 6 months to walk the property, but can we just get a decision made? Somebody make a motion. I mean, I've tried to say what I was going to do, removing notes, no building until the replication area is done, new erosion control barrier around the bottom of the proposed contours before the restoration area. So there's erosion control on both sides of the restoration area. I don't know what else we can do. The rest of it's outside the buffer zone. The house is outside the buffer zone. The house is outside the riverfront zone. Unless you're disputing the riverfront zone or you're disputing.
Are there any questions from anybody else from the board? Anybody from the public have any comments? I don't see anybody raising their hands. I'll bring it back to the board for further discussion.
I think I'd want to see a detailed restoration plan before I was comfortable making any decision on it. It's too vague as it is in the notes. I would need to know exactly what was planned, not just putting site fill and hydroseeding it with wetlands mix. I'd want to see some detail.
I agree with you, Tim.
Anybody else from the board?
I'd like to see the updated plans like Kathy outlined, you know, with those adjustments like Mr. Carvey had just outlined too. So.
And I would like to reinforce that, you know, Lynn made a comment and I completely back her up on that one, that I would like to get a better delineation that follows, you know, what's out there, not a paragraph of delineation. You know, maybe soil cores, maybe some a little more clarification on that. What was BBW before? That piece I would like to see as well. I don't know what the rest of you think. You guys have been kind of silent on that one, but I just wanted to make sure that's a piece that's the most.
Well, whatever you people want.
Excuse me, Carl, could you let me finish for a second? It's the most controversial piece. We've heard Carl, we've heard Lynn. I would like to hear from the rest of the board what they think. I mean, you know, you guys should come to consensus on that one because I think that's the controversial piece. The rest I think is resolvable.
I agree with what you're saying, Kathy, and I do think some core samples would be nice so that we could get a very true understanding. I'd like to hear from Alex and Russ and Rich and
Tim. You want to hear from the boys?
I think you're right. I don't see how they could do a proper restoration plan without knowing what was there prior. And if it takes sampling now to see what was impacted, I think that's the right avenue to take.
Okay. Anybody else? Sorry, Paul. I'm making you guys talk.
Well, I don't know if it is. I just want to make. I can't see if anybody else is muted or not.
They don't look like they are. So
no.
So I think the path going forward, from the sounds of it, is my list plus, you know, as a better delineation of the wetlands. I think we've kind of enumerated what we wanted to see.
Can you have?
I think we're trying to be clear on what we want. I mean, it seems.
Can you just put what you want in writing? Can you vote on what you want?
Carla, excuse me, I didn't hear you.
I said, could you put in writing what you want so I can do what you would like?
Paul?
Oh, yeah. I don't see a problem with that.
right. So we have a summary of everything that was discussed tonight and submitted to Mr. Garvey so that the next time they come before the board, we will have the plans updated and he knows specifically what we want him to do, how we want it to be done. You know, I think that's what he's asking for. Is that not right, Mr. Garvey?
Yeah, I just want to make sure if it's in writing, I know what I'm doing. That's all.
Okay, and Carl, as far as the sidewalk goes, we've had some, none of us have actually gone on the property. I have been on the sidewalk. I viewed it, you know, from a location from the street, but I have not walked on the property. And I don't think anyone else has, because this is this, for me, I'm new to the commission, but it's the first formal hearing that we've had on this, I think. So the fact that the board hasn't walked it, if we can do that in between, if people want to do that, would you be amenable? Would the property owner be amenable to that? Maybe just pick a time and a date. Just if somebody wants to.
You want to walk it all together, or you just want permission to go on the site?
Don't let me hold you guys up because I'm working out of state. So if you guys want to.
I mean,
I've been on it, so I know what it's like. It's all right.
You've been on it?
Yep, I have been.
Really?
Yeah,
Did you get was it a while ago, Russ? Like
before they even filled it in the hole. Yep. With the with other people.
Oh, was the commission invited?
I believe they were at that time. Yeah, that was about last November, December, something.
I didn't get an invite.
Anything about that?
Well, we filed a notice of intent that allows you to go on to the
We
site.
had some issues with
Just showing up and walking on.
well, and considering us trespassing, even though we've been told, perhaps the board was told they could go on, but we need to make sure we notify. And I think this is the first opportunity I think I've had to ask. But I would.
I do not mind if you go on the site, Kathy. You're welcome to walk the site or any other.
Well, I'm trying to ask for Jean. I'm trying to resolve everything. So when we come the next time, get cleaned up.
Any member of the Abington Conservation Commission has property to visit your site.
And we don't have
any member of the Conservation Commission has the right to walk and inspect the site.
And we don't have to notify you before we do that, correct?
No, you don't have to.
Okay, thank you.
Notify me or the owner.
And it's okay with the landowner. Okay, good.
Landowner's
If
okay.
you want to contact my office and say, Kyle, I'm going up to the site. Are you around? Would you come with me? Perhaps I would be available, but it's not that big of a site. I'm pretty sure you can.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to take any of this very long to walk.
Yeah.
Neither do I.
It's just, I just wanted to resolve everything that I just heard.
I mean, you can see where the
I'm back. We're kind of done.
There's a chain link fence in the back that is on the property from the Kelly property. So you know, pretty much know the area you're looking at. There's a stone wall along that side. So you should be able to see what you want to see.
So Carl, if we get you the notes in the next day or two, would you be ready for the next meeting? You think, or
when is your next meeting?
I believe it's the 22nd, 2 weeks. Yeah, 22nd.
I may be able to submit you. Well, I would. It depends exactly what you want. I mean, I'd have to have the botanist go out there and do a.
You get the soil core,
and do. Yeah, I'm not sure I would have it for in who knows.
Well, do you want to request?
I mean, if we get a snowstorm, it would.
Don't say that.
It sounds like it would be close.
Well, do you want us to put you on the 22nd and you can ask us for an extension for the next meeting? If you can.
That would be fun. That's a good idea, Kathy.
Yeah, that would work, I think. And that way,
I know I had a meeting tonight with the Women Planning Board that I just extended. It's a quick hearing.
Yeah. And that way you'll be on the agenda. Yeah.
I would be.
All right, somebody want to make a motion?
Are your next meetings going to be in public?
In person.
In person?
Yes.
I welcome that. Thank you.
Would somebody like to make a motion?
You want a motion to continue?
And to get Kyle Garvey the information that he needs within the next few days? Or 4 days, 5 days, a week?
Somebody from the board want to make the motion?
I'll make the motion to continue this to the next meeting and provide Mr. Garvey with a list of required information and changes to the map, as well as the new delineation core samples and all the other things we discussed. How's that
Do I
sound?
have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
All right.
Okay, thank
Hopefully
you.
we see you on the 22nd.
Okay, thank you.
Next on the agenda is SE 084-0552, request for abbreviated notice of resource area delineation filed by Eduardo de Oliveira, located at 44-54 Linwood Street. Carl, I'm assuming you're going to be speaking on behalf for this
Yes, I
one
am.
too?
Yes, I am.
Are you busy?
The screen is yours.
And hopefully this will be a little quicker. Okay, the property, I assume you all have a copy of a plan that shows the wetland delineation.
Carl, this is a plan dated January 10th. Is that the right plan?
Yep, mhm, yep.
And it's for actually one parcel, correct?
It is one parcel, correct.
Right, that Christopher Seth Field, I think it says on it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, that's one of the abutters, Kath.
Oh, okay. Well, it's on, but the property is.
The property has 92 foot of frontage just south of that. Well,
Okay,
just south of that property, Kathy, between
okay, so it's where
Gervais.
number 62 is, an existing garage.
Yeah, well, that's the abutting.
Oh, that's the abutting,
Field
so it's the
property.
property next to it. Oh, okay. All right, I
And
got it.
then it's the property between Gervais and that existing, where it says existing garage.
Oh.
It has 92
Oh.
foot. It has 92 foot of frontage.
Oh, I didn't
It's
catch
like
that.
it's like a
Okay.
little, it's like a pork chop lot or something?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, gotcha.
And then there's some stone walls there, but then there's a line that cuts diagonally across the back of Field property up towards Signano's property. I mean, the stone wall that cuts through there is not the property line. I mean, there's a bearing on it. There's a distance on it of 215.68 behind Field's property.
So it's one lot that we're looking at.
Yeah, well, yeah, let me see, the lot, this might help you. The property is located on the westerly side of Linwood Street, contains 9.2 acres of vacant land, and is shown as two lots on the assessors map as address number 44 and 54 Linwood Street. The property was originally owned by the Ryerson family and subdivided into two lots by a variance in 2006 and endorsed by the planning board in 2007. And it appears that the variance may have expired after 1 year. There's still some question on that, but that has nothing to do with what we're doing. I'm just pointing that out. At this time, the applicant requested that the wetlands be delineated for two reasons: future use of the property and an abutting lot owner of placement of fill over the property line, which Eduardo had complained about. The abutter Field was a landscaping business on that property who had dumped materials. This property is obviously vacant. Nobody kind of watches where the property line is, so it's kind of convenient to be dumping stuff over the property line onto this site. Eduardo complained to the building department, and at that time, I suggested that we have the site flagged and to see if this abutter had done any fill within the buffer zone. So that was two reasons, and for any future use of the property. Pinebrook Consulting delineated the wetlands starting at Hunts Pond and on the westerly side of the property, and then it follows a low area. Did I highlight the BVW in yellow on your plans? Do you know?
Yes.
Yes, okay, great. So it kind of follows that.
Can I stop you for just a sec, Carl?
Sure.
The property where Hunts Pond is, they don't own it, correct?
They don't own what?
Where the wetlands are, where Hunts Pond is, they don't own that piece, do they? Where the wetlands are?
Yeah,
Yeah, the night.
Oh, they do. They
Yeah.
own whole back property too. Okay,
They own, yeah, they actually own, the property line actually runs to the city of Brockton, Abington,
Okay.
and it
just wanted
transits,
to make sure I understood what was there.
and it traverses through the middle of the pond, Kathy, actually.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it kind of loops around, follows the lowland and comes around back towards property of Kelly, Signano, and Field, and it follows the sewer easement. Can you see where the sewer easement is on the property?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that is the trunk line that runs from, say, Groveland Street through this property, through the abutting properties, and then comes back out on Mill Street. So it's kind of one of the main lines that then gets pumped into Brockton. I believe it's a 30-inch pipe, so it is a main trunk line. This line was installed in the 1980s. The construction of that line, pretty much, they tried to keep the sewer line and did keep it up above the wetland area. So they also installed that line above, just adjacent to the wetlands. So this line and the line that was done way back in the 80s are very similar. As stated previously, any development plans at this time are not planned. However, Eduardo, the person that owns it, plans on building a house for himself at some time in the future. And some variances may be required, as well as the availability of any water and sewer connections within the town. Any future development of this site would require the filing of a notice of intent, as access to any portion of the rear portion of the site would, as you can see, I also have the buffer zone, would require being in the buffer zone, not that construction would necessarily be in there. If it's where it says 9.2 acres on my plan, that's clearly in upland. But to get to that area, you would have to go through the buffer zone. So anything in the future on this project would require the filing of a notice of intent with your board. And the only portion that would not require that would be the very front portion where it shows 92.44 between Gervais and the Field property. But this is a pretty piece of property, and for somebody to put a house there and not have it near Hunts Pond would not make much sense. If you look at the DEP wetland change maps, which I believe I included in my request. I'm not sure, but I think I did. But if you notice that that plan, it's very similar. They're showing the DEP wetland change map shows two lots here, which are 44 and 54. And they kind of show this wetland area as somewhat isolated on the property. We have expanded that wetland area to incorporate the area that heads up towards the McMenem property. All that flagging, say 1A through almost all the way down to A12 is not shown on the DEP wetland change map. So our line is quite a bit more extensive than what's shown on this map. And I'm not sure why, but it is clearly a BBW.
DEP, the Oliver maps, or whatever they call it now, map maker, Carl.
Yeah.
They're really only from aerials, and they try quarter acres. And they always tell us to flag it on the ground for, the long-term delineation.
Yeah. Right. But I was just pointing it out that
is there a river? Is there a river? Is that a river on the left-hand side? What is that?
On the left-hand side? What do you mean, Hunts Pond?
It's the FEMA.
Sorry. That was pretty dumb. And where does the FEMA
I
flood?
didn't hear what you said anyhow, Kathy.
Yeah, the FEMA flood zone. Where is the FEMA flood zone? Is that, I see a FEMA flood zone A? Is that the only FEMA flood zone?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there is. Yeah, it just follows the edge of the pond.
Okay.
Just refresh some of you. If you, on the very northerly property line of this, which is separated by a stone wall, you'll see abutters Aiello and McMenamin on the very top. Those houses come in actually off of Groveland Street via Hunts Pond Lane. Their address is Hunts Pond Lane. Those, especially the McMenamin house, he has a piece around 4 acres with just one house on it. I think if you do have the wetland change map, you can see to the north, his house has a swimming pool in the backyard and so forth as an abutter. And that was subdivision that I was involved with, I don't know, many years ago. I don't want to state my age, but there is, that was a big lot that was just for one individual house. And then the Aiello house is up there that borders the back of Ryerson's farm itself. And this property here at one, which the Ryerson farm going back was also known as the Beal farm. The Beals own that. The Beals also own this particular piece that I have in front of you tonight. And the Field house, going back to when we started, Kathy, 62, which is now owned by Field, was a house that the Ryersons lived in. So I guess I'm getting back to a little bit of history, but throwing some names. But that piece came out of this piece at one time, just so you're somewhat knowledgeable of what was there going back. And there is a cart path that runs through the site, that existing cart path that I show just below where it says 9.2 acres.
Right.
And that was a cart path that I think at some time the Beals kind of utilized, maybe taking cows out to the pond or whatever they did, or getting ice or whatever they did, but it was been there for quite a while. So other than that, at this time, the owner did file a complaint against the abutter. It was suggested that maybe we should have this looked at if he had done any work within the wetland or the buffer zone. I know he hadn't done anything within the wetland area, but had he done something in the buffer zone? Excuse me. But he did not.
Garvey,
Yep.
so the abutter did dump in the 100-foot buffer zone?
He's close, but I don't think so.
Okay.
But he still dumped on. There was a complaint filed with the building inspector, and I believe he looked at the property. And
Can I ask if there was dumping going on in an area that was concerned to be the 100-foot buffer? Did anybody contact conservation other than, I mean, you say the building inspector, they don't do conservation, do they?
Well, no, they just suggested, or I had suggested to the owner, if he had done something in the buffer zone, that would be one way to get it removed from the site by telling you people, and then we would have him remove it. But unfortunately, I really can't say that at this time.
Okay.
So, but that was kind of one of the reasons we originally did it. And it was suggested by the building department that they didn't want to, they may have wrote a letter to the Field property, but at this time, it's just him dumping on private property, and we can't go after him for going within the 100-foot buffer zone.
And did you say the type of material he was dumping was landscaping material? Like you're talking leaves, cut grass, I mean, wood?
Yeah, it was more that. There was some fill that was brought in there. I don't know where it was from, but then there was a lot of almost like appliances and that type of stuff. Some of that has been removed. There was, television sets lying out there. There was all kinds of stuff. It was kind of when Eduardo purchased the property it was actually owned by a fellow, Victor Semino. He kind of blocked off the front, which stopped people from at least going in that beginning area. Right. And then also the abutter at that time knew that there was a new owner and that he was being watched. So that dumping has stopped.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Anybody from the board have any questions?
I think that we need to go on a sidewalk, guys. And this time probably with the contractor, because this one's going to be difficult. We really should walk with Carl and his consultant to look at the wetland delineation. And
yeah, it is, by the way, tough walking. The first part is tough walking. Once you get out to really where the BVW is, it's easier than the beginning where debris was brought in. And then you can walk basically the sewer line, and then you can get up to the cart path area. And the cart path area, you can clearly stand up almost on the hill and look down at the BVW and Hunts Pond. But
sounds like we should bring lunch and a compass.
Yeah, you can. But if you would, we don't get lost. Surveyors don't get lost, Kevin.
Okay, that's great.
I have, but
the other thing was I know Brooke wrote a one-page summary, but we don't really have a description by flag in there. Usually we get a more detailed report. And I think that we're trying to follow the DEP guidance. I think we're going to want a little more detail. Really what we're doing here is approving the wetlands line is really the goal here for this one.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, that's basically all you're doing. And we will, I don't know if I will, but I assume somebody will be coming back in front of you at some time with some proposed use. I know there's moratoriums in Abington, whether he builds a house out there and puts a well in, he may not need water. So, but other than that, it will be coming back in front of you at some time.
Yeah, so if you could work with Paul perhaps to set up a time and date for a site walk. We'll probably have to watch the weather, but I'm thinking everybody works, so probably a Saturday morning might work for people. I don't know what people think.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah.
It would also. I'm sorry, Jeannie.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, as per what Kathy was saying, it'd be nice to know the methodology that was used, and also there's some dominance tests that's done to determine BVW. So it'd be nice to see the data that was used and generated.
Yeah, I mean, she does list the boundary of the BVW was delineated, is fairly well defined by slope in the presence of wetland transitional plant species such as red maple, white pine, beech, white oak, saplings and trees, overstory, high bush blueberry, arrowwood, sweet pepper bush, greenbrier, witch hazel, common buckthorn, and I'm just kind of naming off the easy ones because I can't.
Yeah, Carl, we generally, I think, as time has gone on, have seen more detailed reports, and we're talking about 9 acres. It's a little. It's not like a backyard,
right.
House. I think we're just looking for more detail.
Yeah, I think once you see the site and you can see that the topography is 134, elevation 134 up where it says 9.2 acres. And then you're basically getting to the wetland that is drops down, 20,
yeah, I think your point is when we're out there, we will probably agree with the line because of the elevations.
This time of year, but before the vegetation comes out, as far as, you can see into it versus sometimes when you're standing in a wetland with leaves in front of you, you're looking at about 10 feet. So you'll have to set up a date.
You want to continue?
But I wouldn't. I saw the weather for this coming Saturday, which which I'm just letting you know, sounds like snow or heavy rain. So that would be out anyhow. So
Yeah.
Well, it'd also be nice to kind of look at it in the growing season. The growing season for Plymouth County starts around the 15th of March. So when we're going out there, it's going to be kind of hard for us to delineate what, different plants are and everything. So I think if we, even a week, not this weekend, like you were saying, Mr. Garvey, but the following weekend or the weekend after that.
yeah, I mean, depending on the weather. I mean, we could tentatively set it up, and then, if the weather forecast doesn't sound very good, Paul can notify me and we will cancel to another.
All right, so you want to continue this one to the 22nd as well, and then
No, I think it has to be continued.
ask for an extension?
I would think it would have to be continued after that. And we would have, well, you may want to set a date for April, and then hopefully we have everything resolved by then. Yeah, I mean, we can pick any date in April, whether we get it or not. I just don't think we're going to walk it between the 22nd.
Tony, do you know what the dates are for our April meetings? Would it be the 5th and the 19th?
Oh, I guess we used to meet the second and fourth Tuesday. But if you want, or are you meeting?
Oh, yeah, no, I thought today was the first Tuesday, that's why. So, yeah, you're right, the second Tuesday, so be the 12th.
So the
and
12th?
20th.
I'm checking right now. Sorry. Second,
right.
which would be the 4th or the 18th.
That's a Monday.
No, it'll be the 5th, so the 5th of the 19th.
Yep, the 5th and the 19th. Sorry.
That's the first and third Tuesday. Okay.
The 12th and the 26th. I'm sorry.
Do you want to put that, do you want to continue to the 12th then, and then if we're not ready, you can ask for another extension to the 26th?
Correct, that's fine.
All right. Anybody else from the board have any questions? Anybody from the public have any questions? I don't see anybody raising their hand. I don't see anybody in the chat. So I'll bring it back to the board. Any further discussion?
Oh.
Would somebody like to make a motion to continue?
I'll make a motion to continue.
I'll second that.
For SE 084-552 to the 12th of April?
April 12th? Yep.
Yes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda is continued hearing for SE 084-0549. Notice of intent filed by Rick Montgomery to construct single-family dwelling construction, including driveway, grading, landscaping, and utilities within the 100-foot buffer at 75 Dale Street. Is there anybody here to speak on behalf of the applicant?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Paul Bakers from Grady Consultant on behalf of the applicant, Rick Montgomery. If I could have some share screen capabilities. I'd like to use some graphics for my presentation. Thank you.
You're all set. Screen is yours.
So up on the screen, you should see an overview of the site. We're here this evening to discuss, we've obviously met a couple of weeks ago to talk about the notice of intent. We're here tonight to present the stormwater portion of this project. Because the project will alter greater than an acre of land, this triggers stormwater management by the local town stormwater bylaw. The existing site in general has about 4 to 5 catchments. The first catchment out front in front of Dale Street drains towards the river.
Paul, can I hold you? Are you trying to share the screen? Because I'm not seeing it.
Why not?
I don't know if anybody else can see it.
I can't see it.
How about
There we
that?
go. You're all set.
yeah.
Yep.
So this is just an overview of the site as I was trying to introduce it. So thank you for catching that. And so I just quickly run over some of the existing drainage features that are going on the site. We have an area out in the front of Dale Street. This is existing that all that runoff will drain towards the river. The catchment area number 4 contains the existing house. I know this page is lacking detail, but that also drains towards the river as well. Catchment number 3 kind of drains towards the man-made depression that sometimes does have water, sometimes doesn't have water. And catchment areas 2 and 5 will drain towards Oakland Road and eventually towards the river as well. Under the proposed conditions, when we place the site in, when we develop the site, that breaks up the catchment areas into additional subcatchment areas. Again, out in front, A and C will just, or woodland would just drain towards the river. Area B would be that proposed widened driveway that we've discussed. And I'll get into the BMPs after this discussion. Area D remains unaltered, will drain to the river. Area L is a smaller portion of that area 4. It contains the existing house, some of the existing driveway that also drains towards the river. Area N is part of the new driveway that goes out to the back. Area K consists of a large portion of the upland, but also the driveway, the proposed driveway, and that would drain into a proposed detention pond, which I'll show you in a minute. Area J contains this area in the middle that would drain towards the existing depression. Area H, we're going to propose a dry well for the roof drains. Area E, this would be where the proposed septic system is going, so there'd be some clearing here, but that generally would be grass and woodland that will drain similar to the pre-existing conditions towards the river. And area F and G in the front here, the front yard, that will drain towards the BMP here and then outfall towards the depression. So some of these BMPs that I've been mentioning, the driveway out front will slope so that it'll drain towards a grass swale and into a rain garden with the overflow outlet, allowing the clean treated water to flow towards the river. After the crossing, in a similar fashion, this stretch of driveway would also slope away from the wetlands into a grass swale, and again into a rain garden for treatment, with the clean treated water being allowed to outfall towards the river. Towards the back of the site, as I mentioned, the roof drain, the house as well as the barn would drain to a dry well and then be outfalled into kind of a natural grass swale that will allow the clean treated water to run towards the man-made depression. Along the front of the yard, this is the area that was going to just simply drain off to the stream. But the front of the yard and everything, we would slope the driveway towards the yard to be caught up in a swale, in a grass swale that would eventually lead to another rain garden, be treated, and then an overflow allowing clean treated water to discharge. The large portion, which includes areas up above here as well, would run down towards the driveway. All this driveway area here would be collected by a grass channel again and be routed down into a proposed infiltration basin. This water to allow treatment for the water, this is a significant amount of runoff. And so that's why the basin is pretty fairly sized. And we would again, we have outfalls that would allow for the treated water, the clean water to be discharged out towards the river. Through our stormwater design, there is no untreated runoff from the impervious areas being discharged to any of the resource areas. Within our stormwater report, we show that the proposed condition has peak flows that are equal to or below the pre-existing conditions. We have submitted this to the engineer, peer review for the engineer. We have received their comments. We're working to respond to their comments. We understand that DEP has also provided comments that was generally related to the crossing, however, and we're preparing responses to that. We did receive comments from the commission late on Friday that were typed up from our previous meeting. we're working on responses to those, but one comment we did want to touch upon was the perennial stream in front or behind 5 Dale Street. We do have a determination of applicability that was signed by this Conservation Commission that the area in the stream in the area of 75 Dale Street, the driveway, was intermittent. The area of 5 Dale Street is upstream from this determination. There are no additional outlets for this river, so the river does flow towards the intermittent portion of the stream. And because of that, because it is upstream of the intermittent portion, we feel that the portion of 5 Dale Street should also be considered. So with that, I will happily open it up to any questions that the commission may have.
Where am I? Here I am. Hi, this is Kathy. I did pull out the 5 Dale Street, and I did find a drawing, and I'm sure there's more in our files. It was issued as superseding order from DEP, and they determined it to be perennial, and it does show the 200-foot riverfront, and it actually was pretty fast flowing. Maybe the abutters can talk to you about it. I think there's a couple on right now, but from my perspective, the stream just, for whatever reason, it meanders Dale on 75 Dale, but up above DEP determined it was perennial. So you're probably going to have to take a good look at that 5 Dale Street filing to figure out what's going on.
Can we be provided a copy of that? We asked.
You'd have to go and visit Tony. Okay. She should be able to deal it out.
Can you make sure she has a copy? I think I called and asked, and she didn't have anything readily available before the last time I talked to her. So just make sure she has a copy. If you could make sure she has a copy.
Yeah, and it was subject to a DEP order, so DEP should have it as well. She just needs to probably dig it out. I did look at the comments from the reviewer, and I think it's premature for us to probably make a whole lot of comments on the stormwater till he resolves the issues. I think he had a number of comments, and I figure you guys are going to need to resolve that between both of you before we're able to see it all. But the one comment I did have was, where is the tree farm going, and why isn't it on the plan? Because that's going to be a disturbance and probably have some impact.
So this was discussed at the last meeting. I don't think you were in attendance, Kathy. The tree farm is going approximately in this area in here.
I can't see it here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I stopped sharing my screen. Sorry. So this blue highlighted area was the area of the proposed tree farm.
So are you going to show that in the stormwater plans? Because if it's a tree farm, it's probably going to be baby trees, which are going to have less water uptake than mature trees, or how are you going to handle that?
We can update the plans to reflect the tree farm location. It was kind of just brought to my attention the last meeting, so but we can certainly update the stormwater report. And that's the kind of feedback we're looking for tonight. So we can certainly show the proposed location, make the adjustments in terms of the type of surface and runoff that it's going to affect. So.
And I just had a question more out of curiosity, where the isolated land subject to flooding is, that little thing. I know that one of my comments was that, and DEPs as well, that you needed to do a calculation to see if it meets the ILS, whatever calculation. The property, the land outside of it, is that going to be grassed, or is it going to have trees? Or because I think it's cleared now, but what are you going to? It says proposed tree line. Is there going to be trees there?
So yeah, the intent is this is the existing path of Oakland Road, and the intent is to kind of make that a gravel path. The gravel, there would be a grass swale next to the gravel path to collect stormwater runoff, and it would head in towards the detention pond. The intent outside of the work necessary to construct the path and the grass swale, the remaining area would be left undisturbed. So when it's kind of just proposed tree line, that's kind of just it. Is we don't want to disturb beyond that.
Okay. All right, and you got my questions from last time, so I think I'm just gonna wait and see how those get resolved.
Yeah, we did. I did get those on Friday, and I just haven't had a chance to turn them around. But
Okay.
we've started to look at them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the board have any questions?
Just one thing I noticed when I looked at the plans, and this isn't anything big or major, but on the plans, it said that the owner was Montgomery Engineer, Montgomery, what did it say?
It says Rick Montgomery Mechanical LLC.
Right.
I believe
Yeah,
that's from the deed, and that's the only reason it says that.
Okay, and the only thing I noticed was that on the NOI, it didn't say that. It has him as the applicant, but it didn't say who the owner was, so I was just looking for that. And I think on the last meeting, I did mention that up where the proposed dwelling and the garage and the barn is, the river just kind of dropped off, and that was the 5 Dale area place. And I was just wondering if that Chute-Matuska-Cant River can just kind of be plotted in there if you're going to be updating your plans to include the other changes that we just talked about.
Yeah, I think we talked about that. We would adjust the viewport. I didn't want to present new plans. I had to present the plans that were submitted with the stormwater. So yeah, so we can certainly adjust the viewport to show where it's going.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? I will open it up to the public. Is there anybody?
Yes.
Oh, there we go.
Doug Ulrich.
Doug Ulrich,
I
the
don't
floor
see me on
is yours.
screen, but okay. A couple of points. I just heard what we've long referred to as a vernal pool.
Doug, can you just state your name and address first?
Certainly. My apologies. This is Doug Ulrich at 99 Dale Street. I'm a direct abutter. And I noticed during this presentation that what we've long been referring to as a vernal pool was referred to as a man-made depression. I've owned my property here for probably over 30 years. I'm just wondering how that determination was made, because it certainly wasn't made within my recollection of the land, and my familiarity with it goes well beyond that. That's my first question, and I have another, but would you like to address them separately?
Yeah, this is the man-made depression was the language used by the botanist Ken Thompson when he flagged the site, and so that's the vocabulary that we kind of followed.
But he doesn't know that to be factual. He's making some sort of assumption.
I would have to ask him.
Okay.
He stated it in a application that's been submitted, Doug. So it's stated.
I'm not sure I know what that means, because my information doesn't agree with it.
So he's a wetland scientist who prepared a full report and referred to that area as a man-made depression.
Okay. As someone familiar with the land over most of my lifetime, I will disagree with that designation. I don't know if that affects anything, but I just want to go on record with that. And the other aspect that I had concerns about, I submitted a new letter today. I only recently had a chance to review online your last meeting, where I had expressed concerns about the proposed new driveway over the box culvert. And I had suggested during that time that the applicant could avoid having to get a variance regarding the driveway because with the new box culvert, that was a game changer. And one could do a 3-foot space to either side of the common property line and then the driveway beyond that and meet the zoning requirements. I know Paul disagreed with that. I've gone back and looked at the zoning bylaw and on this day have submitted a letter to you with that section of the zoning bylaw noted. This isn't necessarily a conservation issue, but knowing that they're looking for a zoning variance on this, I would oppose it because they can meet the bylaw. There's no hardship. And if it goes that route, it's going to bounce back to you. And if it can be solved before it gets there, it just seems like that would benefit everyone. So I continue to raise the question, this time with backup information.
We'd be happy to review that information, Doug, if we can get a copy of that letter. We've been told that the separation requirement is larger than 3 feet by the zoning board and by the planning board.
I can just speak on this a little bit. I think I mentioned the last meeting that there was another issue regarding separation of driveways being not just so far from the property line, but so far from each other. I wasn't able to locate that, so I might have been confusing it with another town ordinance. But each driveway has to be 3 feet from the property line, so it's not actually 3 feet; it'd be actually 6 feet of a grass strip. And so now we're doing really two separate driveways, which that then widens the culvert, and then we're going to begin to increase the impacts to the resource area.
We're already up to 24 feet, according to what's on your plans, which is more than what's out there now. In order to do a 10-foot, a 3-foot, a 3-foot, and a 10-foot, that's 26 feet. That's not that much of an increase from what you proposed. And the 10-foot is what is a minimum for the residential area. So I'm talking about an increase of 2 feet in order to meet zoning. I think what you are referring to is other uses other than single-family residential, which requires, I think, 75 feet between driveways. Again, this is single-family residential. That doesn't apply. I don't really want anyone to spend a lot of time with this. I just point out that if this is not solved correctly now, it could bounce back to you from zoning board if proved that it could be done within the zoning restrictions.
Well, yeah, we'll review your letter and we'll take a look. We'll run the analysis. See what can be done.
Thank you.
I just want to step back a little bit. Doug made a comment about the man-made depression, and I went back to look at the wetland report, and on page 3, it states, located on top of the upland ridge is a man-made depression and a potential isolated land subject to flooding, ILSF. It is also mapped as a potential vernal pool. And there's a picture right next to it that says potential ILSF, potential vernal pool. So where is that located on the plan? What's the difference between the man-made depression and the ILSF vernal pool?
I think you're muted, Paul.
My apologies. This was the area that Ken had made reference to as the man-made depression.
And the isolated land subject to flooding / vernal pool?
According to Mass GIS Mapper, the potential vernal pool is also in here as well.
Okay, so you're saying that man-made, it's also man-made depression, and it's also an isolated land subject to flooding or vernal pool. That's it, right?
It's shown as a potential vernal pool. Yes, that's what the report indicated.
Okay. So I don't know very much about stormwater, but do we treat something like that differently if it's man-made versus something that is, say, an ILSF?
And it's always the conversation. People will call things drainage ditches, but they're intermittent streams. If it's determined to be a wetland, it is, even if it was man-made, it doesn't matter. It really is whether it meets the threshold for a vernal pool or a threshold for an isolated land subject to flooding.
Well, our
In
discharge,
cases they're protecting it, I think, at this point, which, you know, I appreciate. I think it serves some drainage purposes for them as well. So, you know, in the end, it's just making sure we know the extent of what's there. That's why I asked about the calculation, to make sure that we've got the whole thing covered. But the good news is they're protecting it. So, you know, it's kind of, but I would tell you that I would think it's a wetland if the vernal pool's there. It's just sure it's big enough, and it may not qualify under Mass state law, but it probably will qualify under the Army Corps. So,
and town bylaws, right? Because it doesn't have to be certified.
That's correct. And the Army Corps. So, and the good news is they're protecting it. So we can argue about what it is, but it's staying. It's not getting removed.
Okay, thank you, Kathy.
Yeah, sorry. It's one of those though, because we always end up in that conversation. Okay. I did have a question. I think we talked about getting a consultant, and is that a separate conversation from all of this to take a look at the wetland piece, not the stormwater piece? Obviously, the town already has that going on. Is that a separate conversation, Paul? Are we going to do that separately?
Oh, yeah, well, let's go work through all the wetland stuff first, and we can circle back to that.
Okay.
Anybody else from the public have any questions? Doug, do you have any more questions?
No, I'm all set for the moment. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I have a question. I'm Dave Hall from 29 Dale Street, the direct abutter. What is going to be stored in the barn in reference to the stormwater management? Is equipment, fuel, any of those items being stored in that barn that I see up there? And if so, is there retention for any oil or whatever comes out of the equipment? If you got a large barn and you're storing a lot of heavy equipment in there and they're working on it, there should be something for oil separation.
Yeah, the building department would require a sub-drain for a commercial garage and a tight tank. This is anything that's stored in there is covered and on the interior and wouldn't be subject to this commission's jurisdiction.
So they can store heavy equipment in there and do whatever they want inside of a building?
No, they have to comply with the building code, state building code.
All right.
I have a question. The gentleman that was just speaking, I don't know your name, but there was a similar situation just recently where a applicant came before ZBA and wanted to build a barn. And I know this is a little off subject, but the question was raised as to what could be stored in the barn. And one of the abutters specifically asked, can you store vehicles in there? And they said no. So the barn is going to be used for storing vehicles? I don't know. Is that a zoning board issue here?
Yeah, so that would be a building code issue, Gene. So it's on the interior of the building. Again, commercial garages require floor drains to a tight tank. This is a residential barn. I'm sure the building department would take a look at the architecturals and find out what the intent is and if a floor drain and tight tank is required by code.
Okay, because like I said, it just happened on the street here, and it was like the zoning board said it's a 28 by 28 barn. I don't know the size of this barn. What did it say on the plans?
Much larger than that.
Yeah, I know it's much larger, but I'm like, I don't even know how fast it doesn't really, but okay.
Are there vehicles going to be stored outside as well? You know, I guess tree cutting vehicles and stuff. Are there going to be storage of tree cutting vehicles? I don't know what you might have, trailers that kind of thing. Is that going to be stored on site? Because we would care from a conservation perspective because we don't want oil in our wetlands or in our area. Are you going to be storing?
I think the intent would be to utilize the barn to store equipment, Kathy. I would think that's the purpose of it. I mean, obviously you would use the equipment outside and bring it back in to store it. I don't know if overnight is considered storage, but that would be the home for any equipment.
It's a pretty darn big barn.
Yep.
So it's not going to be horses, I guess. It's going to be equipment. Sorry, we just don't know because, the character of that barn was not really disclosed to us. I'm a little concerned about storing vehicles without some kind of oil catch. I'll have to think about that one a little bit.
This is Dave Hall again. Could I just ask you, you're storing equipment in there. You're saying it's residential, but it's being used for a tree farm. How is that residential if you have a tree farm? And that's what the equipment's being used for.
I guess maybe it's agricultural then.
Well, Rick wants to weigh in, I believe, and we've had this, it was mentioned before that it was the tree cutting and associated work with that would have been outsourced. It wasn't going to be done by the homeowner. So I don't know if it's more storage of, I don't know if it's more storage of personal vehicles. We had talked before about, I don't know if it was this particular meeting, but the tree clearing portion may have been, was going to be done by outside, not necessarily the homeowner. That might be in my story straight. So I would defer to the applicant if Rick could just weigh in.
Okay, just because I see that they have they must own a backhoe. It's been driving up and down through their property since they've moved here. So I'm assuming they have at least that, if not more equipment.
Can I jump back in with a question?
The barn actually is located outside the buffer zone.
You guys have not mapped the riverfront area yet in that area, so we don't quite know if it is or not.
Yep, we're going to take a look at the information that we have not been able to obtain yet to determine what the procedure was for that superseding order and what the details of that were. And we've been working off the fact that there's an RDA that the commission approved and that the river up gradient of that would also be considered intermittent because there's less water contributing to that stream. Up gradient of this site. We actually had this, the commission also determined in another filing in 2002 that the same river was also considered intermittent down gradient from this point. So there's been multiple filings and evidence submitted and approved that this is an intermittent stream. So I just need your data to see.
It's actually DEP's data.
Can I?
Well, the
can I
detail,
just bring up
the data
one
that
more
we
thing
don't
when you
have
get a
yet.
chance?
Go ahead, Mr. Hall.
Yes. From my understanding of talking to DEP, because I'm the one who filed on 5 Dale Street, that the Conservation Commission isn't the authority to make that jurisdiction. Only the DEP can make a determination whether or not a stream is perennial or intermittent. And it's a judgment of them, not by the local Conservation Commission to make that determination.
The Wetlands Protection Act under the river section 10.58 lists 10.581 discusses the parameters for how a river is determined to be perennial versus intermittent. And it's we provide the evidence to the commission, and then the commission makes the determination. If we don't agree, then it goes to superseding order at DEP.
Okay. Well, it did go to DEP. I brought it to DEP.
Yeah, I need to see the details of it. We've tried to obtain that information, and for some reason, we haven't been able to get it.
It's
So
filed
I'd
with
like to see
DEP
it.
and it's filed with the town. I've filed it myself with myself and my lawyer.
I completely believe you. We just have not been able to get the information in our hands to review it.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Francis Crimmins. I'm an attorney in Stoughton, helping out Mr. Montgomery. You know, on the question that just came up about 5 Dale Street, I was surprised to hear this evening a reference that DEP had declared any part of a stream as perennial. I looked up at DEP every order of conditions for 5 Dale Street, and even ran a search of every Concom order issued for any property on Dale Street from 2010 to the present. And what I found was at DEP file number 084515, issued in 2017 to Arthur Frank, in an amendment of that order in 2018, there was no such determination. I checked with the file at Town Hall. There was nothing. If you look at their form on WPA Form 5, page 3, out of 12 pages, you can see on that, and it's recorded at the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds. There was, when you have to check the boxes, what you need for DEP, there was nothing for resource area, for bordering vegetative wetland. There was nothing for riverfront area.
I found a drawing that I had in my email that I sent to Paul that actually does show the riverfront area, and it was for a more recent filing. I think we just need to get, you guys need to get the actual filing from DEP. Maybe the halls can help you with that. But I'm sure we could send you at least that drawing where it did show the part of the riverfront. It didn't show the full riverfront, but yeah, they did show the riverfront determination line. And I do recall the superseding order, and I do remember seeing the drawings that were through DEP. You know, at some point, the Conservation Commission doesn't have any control when DEP is doing that work. Right. I do think they came back to they changed the plans and put a single family house and got it approved, but originally they had 2 houses there. And I think that's what the halls appealed.
Is there a way to see when that was or how that was? Because the databases at DEP don't show that. I don't doubt you saw what you saw, but the database doesn't show it. The registry.
I think you might actually have to go and get do an actual in-person records at DEP, but yeah. I would think
I can look into my records and see if I still have a copy of it too.
That would be awesome. I think that would save a lot of time.
Yep, great. Yeah. Thank you.
And Dave, would you provide that to the commission, to Tony, who would provide it to us?
Yeah, I'll have to dig around and see if I still have it, but I'll let somebody know at conservation.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, if we don't know what the purpose or what they were determining, what any of the details are, where we don't know what that evidence contains.
Okay.
Thank you.
Doug, did you have your hand raised for something, or?
The discussion of the barn. I've been kind of confused about the aspect of that too. Reminding everyone that the property is owned by Richard Montgomery Mechanical LLC, And according to the Secretary of State, the general character of the business is marine boat repair and property maintenance. So I didn't know if there was any aspect of the barn that tied into the business that owns the property. I'm sure there are zoning issues about that, but it was a surprise to me. When I hear mechanical, as an architect, I think plumbing, and suddenly I'm looking at boat repair and property maintenance. So I just want to make everyone else aware of that too.
Somebody from the applicant want to respond, or?
I don't have any information on boat repair proposed at this property. We're proposing a barn and a single family dwelling and associated utilities. We'll look into that.
We'll speak to the applicant and confirm the use.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the public? All right, I'll bring it back to the board. Any other questions on stormwater?
No, I think we said we were going to defer to the questions that were raised by the peer reviewer. And
Yep.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Paul.
Thank you. In general, when the board looked at the stormwater report, any issues with the type of BMPs that were selected, general in favor of, any comments along those lines?
I really like the rain gardens myself, and that kind of made me very happy. I do think that there was comment from the reviewer that he may want you to break it up some more, but I do like the environmentally friendly things that you guys were proposing.
Thank you.
I had
Lynn,
talked.
Well, go ahead, Lynn.
Oh, so I was talking to someone, Andrew at DEP, and he was mentioning that for the stream crossing standards, that he wanted them to be met to the optimum standards. And I looked them up, and one of them was, instead of a 3-sided culvert, the optimum would be for a bridge. Is that something that can be done instead?
We'll review those standards again, Lynn.
Okay.
We designed this based on the RDA that it's an intermittent stream, not a perennial river. Again.
Sure.
So.
No. It didn't matter like whether it was intermittent or perennial. It was just what the actual crossing standards were. And I was just looking up the DEP guide for stream crossing. And it mentioned the optimal standards. And there was a couple of things, some stuff, I'm a biologist, so I didn't understand all of that. But the first thing that caught my eye was that the optimum was a bridge. And they gave examples of 3-sided culverts, but it looked like from that documentation, it wasn't the maximum, which Andrew had mentioned.
Sure, we'll take a look. There's probably, some cost prohibition there, et cetera, but we'll provide you some detail on that.
Okay.
So I mean, what they've submitted, in my opinion, I think it's fine. I've seen similar structures with taking a lot more water than what's there.
Okay.
Any more questions on stormwater? All right, and then my notes, I know the last meeting we talked about the peer review, and I know Gene was going to track down and try and get at least 3 quotes.
which I did do and I did provide you with. The last one being late this afternoon, and I think I forwarded it to you. I did reach out to 9 places that were provided. I contacted the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissions. I spoke to Michelle Gerard. She, in fact, provided me with a directory of companies that do peer review. She also sent me a video with a link to watch with regard to peer review and the standards and the reasons why you should and have one, particularly where there's multiple sensitive areas involved. I apologize for my clocks going off. This is the largest table I can have in my house. Anyway, so I did contact 9. I also reached out to Andrew, who cannot provide any referrals, but did put me in touch with the conservation agents in Stoughton and Canton, who were very helpful as well. So we did get 3, and I think 2 you may have received. One was from Sebacia Inc., and the other was from LEC, and the third was from Ecotech, I believe. Ecosystems, I'm sorry, Ecosystem Solutions, which is a Brandon Fanup, and he actually did a presentation for MAC. So, did everybody have a chance to look them over?
Yeah, I did, Jeannie. They were, thank you for doing that. That was very helpful. You know, from the qualification standpoint, you know, they're all under 5,000, so we can just pick someone. But I really thought Sebacia, and I've actually, you know, have seen some of his work before. I liked him the best from my perspective, and his quote was in between LEC and the other gentleman. So
Ecosystem Solutions, yeah.
Yeah, and I think LEC is pretty good. They're a consultant firm, so you know, they do service a lot of conservation commissions as well. But my preference would be Sebacia, just because I think you know, I've had some experience, and his quals were very good.
His qualifications were amazing. He was very easy to speak. He was very easy to speak to, and he was very, I mean, this is a new process for me, reaching out, and you know, like you said, he was, his proposal was, I thought, very thorough. So, I mean, that's my opinion. I don't know if anybody else on the board, what their opinions are.
He got back to you pretty quickly, right?
He was the first response. Yeah, he was right on top of it.
So that made me feel, you know, I thought his qualifications are excellent. The price point wasn't as extreme as this LEC one was. Yeah. And he had, it just all the stuff that he's done. People aren't really giving us any other information about who's going to do it and what their qualifications are. And he was just amazing. And I feel like one of the concerns that we had 2 weeks ago was how fast it would get done. And the fact that he had everything ready to go and quickly got it to us, I think bodes well for a quick turnaround.
Right, because I think Tim did mention that at the last meeting, you know, we don't want to drag this out with turnaround times of 30, 60, 90, you know.
Yeah.
And I understand that. And, you know, we want to be sensitive to that for Mr. Montgomery and us, the board itself.
No, it'd be nice if we can get the engineer's feedback at the same time that we get the revised stormwater with all, you know, addressing all the peer review for that. That way we can just vote on everything in one shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chairman, does the applicant have any input on the peer review selection? And I just wanted to add a couple of quick comments about the delineation process that we've had.
Yeah,
so the previous owner was Frank Winowitz, and he was working with Larry Silva, SEA Consulting, and they were proposing a 10-lot definitive subdivision here. Larry was busy and wasn't responding. He prepared preliminary plans, did topographic, and also hired the botanist to go out and do the delineation. As completely separate, independent, qualified Ken Thompson delineated this for the previous owner, completely separate from Mr. Montgomery. we got involved, and we don't use Ken Thompson. We know who he is. We know he's qualified, but we had our wetland scientist, John Zimmer from South River Environmental, a very accomplished wetland scientist with great reputation, come out and review this line. And he confirmed it for us, for actually, again, Frank Winowitz, who we were working with at the time. Mr. Montgomery subsequently purchased the property, and we've been working from this delineation for a couple of years now. But from the applicant's perspective, he's basically had two independent professional wetland scientists delineate the BVW. I understand there's questions about offsite riverfront and superseding orders. And you've asked us questions about isolated land subject to flooding, which we recently received and we are going to respond to. $5,000 sounds like a lot of money to have another review, a third review. If the commission does want to have a peer review of this, I would suggest that Bob Graves, Sebastian meet John Zimmer out there, walk it, and agree one time instead of Bob Gray go out, write a letter, John write a letter, Bob write a letter. If we get them on site together and knock it out in one meeting to keep the costs down and make these decisions quickly and efficiently, that would be our preference. But again, to go back, we've hired independent botanists, wetland scientists to go out and determine where these wetlands are. It wasn't something that we just went out and indiscriminately threw flags around. So I just want the board to know that, we've done this professionally.
Well, I'm not trying to, I don't think anybody from the board is saying you guys aren't doing anything unprofessionally. I think we're just
relatively new.
Not just that, we want to protect the board.
Sorry, go ahead, Paul.
We want to protect the applicant if something happens in the future. I mean, things get missed. And I just want to make sure when we vote on something, whether it's for or against, everybody has a clear conscience. They don't have to worry about anything popping up a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years from now.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, speak.
Oh, thanks. I echo everything that Kevin Grady just stated to the commission. I would just ask, when you make your vote, whoever you pick, if you could put as part of the motion to pick somebody, what the scope of the work is that you're asking that person to do.
Yeah,
Thank
it's all, I mean, it's all in the proposal. Paul or Kevin, were you guys copied on any of these proposals? Was sent to you?
We haven't seen them yet.
No, we did not receive the proposals.
Yeah, and it's usually a conservation decision according to the class I just went to, because I wanted to learn more about it. But I don't think we have a problem sharing, because you're going to end up, whoever we pick, having to pay for it. But I really do believe it's a conservation, if it's member decision who we pick. I think I don't think it's not unreasonable what he's proposed.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, we don't have any question that you have the right to do this. All I'm saying, under the wetlands bylaw, but the wetlands bylaw requires, a reasonable finding that additional information that's acquirable only by outside consultants would be necessary for making the objective decision. And you just heard the engineers say they didn't get a chance to see it. So we'd just like, in fairness, to see what the scope would be when you pick whoever you pick.
Sure.
We're going to make a decision tonight, so are you okay with us sending you the scope after the meeting if we make a decision tonight so that we don't hold Mr. Montgomery up?
I would just ask on behalf of Mr. Montgomery that you include the scope in your motion, that then send it to us so we know what is being asked of your selection. That's all, you know. We haven't had a chance to see it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Gene, do you have a copy of that proposal? I don't have one. I'm
looking for it right now. Okay. I do have Sebacia Incorporated, his proposal here in front of me, and the scope of work to be performed by Sebacia Inc. You want me to read it out loud?
Is it long?
Doesn't look like it.
Doesn't look
No,
like it. No.
No.
Okay.
It's pretty clear cut. Review the notice of intent application, review the plan of record, conduct a site assessment with Conservation Commission and representatives of the applicant. Prepare a formal letter of findings for the Abington Conservation Commission, attend a conservation meeting hearing, Zoom, Sebacia Inc. And he just goes on to what his estimate is. Please feel free to contact me. If anything goes over that, he, prices out per hour. And that was pretty much it. We pretty much just, I'm speaking for myself when I say there's a lot of sensitive information, sensitive areas on this plan. I have listened to and I've read what's been presented before me, and I just want confirmation from another source, independent of what was submitted to us, to either confirm, say, yes, this is correct. No, we need more information here. This is a little, you've got river crossing, you've got stormwater all over the place. I'm just feeling more comfortable with someone who will be representing and saying this to us independently of what was submitted. I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but
I agree.
I think it's a very large site and it's very complicated. It's not a single house lot or something
exactly
straightforward. I think, if you realize that the length of how long it is probably the length of Dale Street, because it goes behind Dale and it behind Beaver Lane. It's a pretty substantial size property that we're talking about. And it's complicated with the different types of wetlands that are there. So it's a bit unusual for tiny Abington to have to deal with. So I just think it's good business for both the applicant and for us and to catch everything now and do this right, because it's going to be like this for 100 years after this. We are agreeing to something that we want to all be happy with in the end.
Right. I mean, you can't undo once it's done.
Correct.
Understood. And, you guys, if that's the choice and you want to have a second opinion on the wetlands and notice of intent, that's fine. I just want to point out that the other peer review, so now we're getting a second peer review. The other peer review on the stormwater does tend to migrate beyond the stormwater. It does talk about riverfront and it does creep. I'm wondering if you guys have any updates on where that budget is and if we are answering notice of intent and delineation questions to the stormwater review, as well as this new reviewer. Are we going to have double reviews?
We don't have any input on that stormwater review. It was as much of a surprise to me as it probably was to you when I got it. I did notice a little bit of the overlap, but you probably need to direct that particular question to the stormwater guys.
Who is the stormwater approving authority? Is that the planning board?
Planning board.
I think, it's planning.
My understanding is that planning board has designated, planning board has the authority to designate Conservation Commission as the approving authority. And that's what's happening in this case.
We didn't know that. Sorry about that, guys, but I do think that we did not know that.
We
Right?
did thought this was all planning because
So we'll have to.
This
regroup
relates
and-
to Mr. Crimmins' comment about what the scope is.
Yeah, we just, frankly, we just don't know. So we'll have to get back with the planning board because a lot of that is, more typically planning board or zoning board review. We usually get that information after they're done.
Would the commission consider allowing the wetland scientists to meet on the site and be able to speak to each other so they can resolve any issues without competing memos?
Yeah, I mean, I still think we probably are going to end up with some letter at the end, but certainly meeting, I think it's in our scope of work already that it was going to meet on site with your folks. Was in this.
Sebacia Inc. did say that, conduct a site assessment with Conservation Commission and representatives of the applicant. So I would assume that would be your wetland scientist, yes?
Okay.
Or whoever else he wants there,
Say that again?
or whomever else he would like to
Yeah.
have there, the applicant, that is. I mean, he may want somebody from, Mr. Grady or Paul, or, I don't know who else he wants there, but I'm sure they could work out a time and a date.
Yeah, that's the applicant can decide who they want to have out there.
Correct.
Sounds good. So, to my point, we just want to make sure that we don't have a lot of overlap and scope creep and the peer reviews to, creep beyond their
I
budget,
think
the budgets,
the best thing, like you said, is to get the representative from Sebacia out there with your representative and just try and hash everything out and get it back to the board as soon as we can.
Okay.
That way you guys
Take
can.
control of the budget for the planning board, for the stormwater management. I mean, he was hired by another board.
Yeah, we don't have any information on that.
Yeah, we don't know
just
either.
I'm just trying to get ahead of it.
So we'll try to get to the bottom of that. So
Thank
we
you.
can figure out who's in control of that.
And can we have a date, please? Like an outside date
As far as,
coming back to the commission?
Yeah, we're going to request a continuance with the commission.
yeah, I guess, I don't know, ballpark, when do you think you'll be ready with the comments for the peer review for the stormwater?
Well, we're working on them currently. I'd like to get your next meeting, and if we don't have the information done, then we'll request a continuance ahead of time so everybody knows. But,
Okay.
Mr. Montgomery's been working on this a while, so we're going to try and help him move it along as best we can, if it's okay.
And if we vote and approve on Sebacia tonight, I'll let Jean can run point on that since she's already been in contact with them. See if we can.
Lucky Jean.
Yeah, lucky me.
I should have asked.
Based on the class I went to, I think we have to actually have the check in hand before we can authorize him to start.
We don't. Did he ask for a deposit? We don't.
No, it's the way the rules are read.
No, I understand. We don't know how much to give you.
Yeah, we'll tell you. We'll tell you.
The estimate that he gave us on the quote, Jean, you have that handy?
It says, Sebacia estimates the fee for the services listed in the scope of work above is between $2,800 and $3,000. And if it goes over that, any additional work beyond the scope of work will be billed hourly at $200 an hour. So, 28 to 3,000, that's what it said. So I'm hoping that when they get together with the applicant's representatives and they all walk the site together, exactly can be done what was just described by Mr. Grady, and that is to get them to hammer it out, resolve their issues, come back to us and say, it's the blessing, you're good to go, and then we can just move forward from there. That's what I'm hoping for.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, but anyway, just so that we get him on board as quickly as we can, we are trying to pay attention to your need for speed.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more comments or questions from the board? Would somebody like to make a motion to approve one of the 3 quotes for outside peer review?
Have we all decided that we're going to go with that?
Pick one and see if somebody seconds it.
Okay. What was his name again?
Sebastian, Bob Gray.
Bob Gray. Thank you.
Sebastian.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve Bob Gray from Sebastian to perform a peer review of 75 Dale Street.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Tim or Alex, did you guys? So Tim's a no, you abstained, and Alex, you there? I can't see you or hear you.
I'll make the motion, second that.
Nope, you don't have to second it. It was already seconded.
Oh,
Yes or no?
what did you say? Sorry.
It was already seconded. Yes or no?
Yes, I'll,
Okay. So Gene, if you could get in contact with Sebastian tomorrow?
I will definitely give him a call first thing in the morning.
Okay.
Thank you.
Will you have him contact us to coordinate?
Absolutely.
Who do you want to have him go through, Paul or?
Yeah, Paul would be fine.
Yeah,
All
I'll
right.
point.
Okay, so I'll have Tony. Well, we can either work together or however you want to do it. You can contact me too directly if you'd like.
Hey,
Or we
Mr.
can work
Chairman?
through-
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just, I know it's a Zoom meeting and all that, but do you folks take a roll call vote or some record as to who's for, who's against, just for the purposes of the minutes?
Usually we don't, but I don't know if Tony would be the one to answer that question.
Usually I can tell by the voice and I just know who it is.
Okay,
So
great.
I know, but we don't really roll call.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we generally only roll call when we go, if we went into executive session. Generally, for everything else, we just vote.
I'm just saying, when you see the screen with a lot of people, it's tough to figure out who's who, so, but thank you.
All right, so you want to try for the meeting on the 22nd?
Yes, please.
Okay. Somebody want to make a motion for the continuation?
make a motion to continue the hearing for 75 Dale Street to March 22nd.
They have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for your
you.
time.
Wait, Russ, did you vote to continue the hearing?
I
Yeah.
did.
Okay, because you abstained before, so I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure.
All right, next on the agenda is conservation fees.
Yay.
Paul, it's so late that maybe we
You
should
wanna-
postpone it to the next meeting. I think everybody's probably worn out.
Yeah.
Yep,
All somebody has to do is make the motion.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to continue
To
I'll second.
fees.
Hold on, continue the conservation fees to the March 22nd meeting.
Yep.
Yes,
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval of meeting minutes. Gee, I looked at the meeting minutes from November 9th that Gene, I read your email. Tony, did you get a chance to update that?
Yes.
You did? Okay. Did everybody get a chance to review those from November, just from November 9th?
Yes.
I did.
Motion
All right,
to,
so
motion to approve the minutes from November 9th as written.
I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Tony, did you send the 23rd yet?
No,
I
I
saw
have
the
the 15th and then I've been working on the 22nd.
All right, the 15th, that was the
Joint meeting.
the joint meeting with the Open Space Committee. Everybody get a chance to read those minutes?
I did.
Those must have been fun to write out, Tony.
They were perfect.
Someone want to make a motion to approve those?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the Conservation Commission and Open Space Committee meeting from February 15th, 2022.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Only be Jean or Alex? Jean, second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
You should be noting who wasn't present then. Is that, and you should, they shouldn't have voted to approve them.
Yeah, I didn't hear Russ or Tim.
Good. It's just hard on Zoom to see it.
All right, somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Have a good night.